Subscribe to WROK on YouTube and never miss a meeting.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We do have a couple absences tonight. Commissioner Dubuck is feeling really under the weather, and I am a little bit too, but I think I can get through tonight. And Commissioner Colo's out as well. So we're going to start with 5, which is one more than the quorum needed. So I'm going to call to order the Royal Oak City Commission meeting to order for December 12, 2022. We're going to begin with an invocation given by Commissioner Douglas, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask that you stand if you can.
People celebrate many things in the month of December: miracles, harvest, the solstice, the changing of the seasons, community. A common theme among all of them is generosity and giving. Rather than bowing our heads, let us take a moment to look at those around us, here in this room and at home. We see our friends, neighbors, family, loved ones. We are all blessed to be well-fed, warm, and comfortable. Tomorrow, let's look a little harder, a little further. Look for those who have no home, no family, no food, and precious little holiday joy. In a month when we celebrate miracles, the harvest, or the changing of the seasons, let us also celebrate our humanity by opening our pocketbooks and our hearts to those less fortunate. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we are very fortunate tonight to have Representative Scott with us here. And I understand that you have a legislative update for us this evening.
Yes, I'll just keep it really brief. We actually had our lame duck a week or so ago, and we are not in session at the moment. But I just wanted to come tonight to really thank everybody for their support and their vote. I'm happy and proud to be able to represent Royal Oak and House District 7. Currently, the district spans from Wayne County over into Oakland County, starting at 96 in Livernois, all the way down Livernois, crossing 8 Mile into all of Ferndale, half of Royal Oak Township in Precinct 1, a quarter of Royal Oak, and also all of Pleasant Ridge. So really happy to be here today, and also proud to say that we, as I'm sure that you all have heard, that we have majority in the House. We also have majority in the Senate, so we're very excited about that. We have a new Speaker of the House, Joe Tate. We're in the process of selecting our committees. I am currently on the Committee of Committees, which means we gather information from all 56 reps, and then we decide, well, we make recommendations on what committees they should be on, and Speaker Joe Tate makes the final selection. So we're in the process of doing that right now. That should be completed in January. I currently represent my district on energy, communications and technology, and financial services. I myself would want to still maintain on energy and have a little difference of policy and approach is my wish. So we hope that that will happen. We'll see. I'll be able to come back in January and give you an update on that. But really just wanted to come tonight and again thank all of the citizens. Thank you so much for your support, and also to thank this body, to let you know that I would look forward to sitting down with all of you in January so that we can come up with some ideas and suggestions and recommendations on how I can best effectively represent you in the State House, and you can give me some ideas of what you're looking for from me and what your concerns and issues are. So just really wanted to come again tonight and say thank you for your support and also your vote. I'm looking forward to representing Royal Oak and all of the other 4 municipalities that I have within House District 7 now. So nothing really further to add. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions for Representative Scott?
No? Okay. I would like to also introduce Gregory Humphreys, who's also my Chief of Staff. He will be here with me at the meetings. There may be times that session may be running late, or I'll have other meetings and I may not be able to come, but you can be assured that he will be representing me here as well. So just know that my office is open to everybody. I'm a hard worker, excited and ready to be your voice in Lansing. So just wanted to come tonight and let you know that, and again to say thank you. I do have another meeting that I have to go to, but I wanted to take the time and prioritize Royal Oak and let you know how grateful I am.
Well, thank you, Representative Scott.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Humphreys, we look forward to working with you and, lifting up not just the district, but our fine little town here as well. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you. You're welcome. I will also have cards in January, so we've ordered new cards.
Oh,
so.
perfect. Yeah, everything's changing.
Yeah, everything except for the district number. The district number is the same, so excited about that. And my office doesn't change. A lot of people have different numbers and they have to move their offices around. I'm the only one in the State House that didn't have to do that, so I'm very grateful for
You
that.
drew the great straw. Then.
Yeah, I did. All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. All right, this brings us to item 5, which is the approval of the agenda. I don't know, well, with the approval of the agenda, just since we have so many people here tonight, I understand there's going to be a couple things brought off the consent agenda. Whoever makes that motion, do you think it would be possible that we could take, with the approval of the agenda, anything pulled off the consent agenda, we'll just put to the end of the agenda? Is that okay? Is that amenable with everyone?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone want to make that motion? We have a motion by Commissioner Douglas, second by Commissioner Prush. Okay, discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We have an agenda. All right, this brings us to item 6, which is public comment. The City Commission values and relies on the input of our fellow citizens to help us make decisions. Now is the time set aside for the public to address the City Commission on any city-related issues, both on the agenda or not. I ask that comments be directed to the Commission as a whole and not to individual commissioners. If you wish to speak tonight at public comment, please wait until you're recognized by me, Mayor Fournier, then come up to the podium. For the record, you will state your name and address. Please be mindful that the Commission wants to hear from anyone and everyone who wishes to speak tonight, so comments are limited to 3 minutes or less per speaker, not per topic. There is a timer at the podium to help you keep track of your allotted time. If you don't wish to speak tonight, please don't hesitate at any time to email or call the City Commission with your comments. Please note that we typically don't respond directly to questions during public comment. However, we are taking notes and will address those questions when the agenda topic is discussed or refer to the proper city department if the matter isn't scheduled on the agenda. Our city manager is also taking notes and will look into matters accordingly. So with that, who's up? I'm going to start with this young man in the back wearing the blue coat and the orange line. I think his name is Jim James.
Thank you, Mayor Fournier. I thought it would be appropriate I'd come up right after Representative Scott gave her welcome speech. I can give my goodbye speech. My name is Jim Ellison. Still currently the state representative, at least until the 31st of this month, and then I'll be moving on to greener pastures. But I just wanted, and as Representative Scott said, she will be, one of the front runners. I want to remind you that you have 3 other state reps. City of Royal Oak, under redistricting, has now been divided into 4 different districts. So instead of having 1 representative, you'll have 4, which is problematic only in the sense that you'll have to realize what district you live in if you need help from your state representative. It take a while to get used to it, but the advantage of that is we now have 4 people running or representing Royal Oak, and I think that's an advantage for the city. So a couple things happening as the representative said, we have now taken a Democratic majority, which is going to be good, I think, for our city, because in my 6 years up there, I pushed very hard for municipal finance reform, and as much as I pushed for it, got close a couple of times, but was never able to cross the finish line with the Republican majority, and that's going to change now. I know that I had a bill that is still sitting out there. I think it's probably officially dead at this point, but it would create a trust fund for state shared revenue. One of the problems we've always had in our budget system is that the state shared revenue money that we are entitled to by statute is taken away in a sense. A lot of that money is used for other priorities, so it's not safeguarded. What my bill would have done, and I hope it's going to come back again, is protect that money into a trust fund, the state shared revenue trust fund, that it could only be used for municipal government finance. That would match then the other part. We have state shared revenue by statute and constitutional state shared revenue. Constitutional revenue cannot be touched. State shared revenue on the statutory side can be. This would protect that from happening. So we've also got bills out there that would modify how Hadley works in conjunction with Prop A. So I have a lot of hope that we'll have more discussion on that with the Democratic majority. I'm not sure where it's going to go, but at least we'll get hearings, which we didn't get before. But other than that, it's been a pleasure representing the city of Royal Oak for the past 6 years as your state representative. I'm not going away. I'm still going to be here. I'll be involved somehow. The details will be coming out soon. But it's been a pleasure, and I thank you for all your support and assistance over the last 6 years, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Once again, Jim leaves very big shoes to fill. At least we have 4 people representing Royal Oak that can at least make an attempt to fill those big shoes once again. So, Jim, we thank you for all your service. Okay, who's next? Yes, sir, Mr. McGee.
Evening, Patrick McGee, 4524 Elmhurst Avenue. I'm here to speak to you guys on item number 12. I wasn't able to make it to the Parks and Rec meeting, but let me tell you, I'm in huge support, pro parks, of getting Elks Park this grant application. So I would ask that you guys vote for this and put contributing funds to this. On a separate note, but connected to Elks Park, 2 key items. With us revisiting Elks Park and doing some redesigning, a while ago during a traffic committee, we removed a crosswalk that was going to the park. Maybe we relook at adding that crosswalk back in as part of the traffic committee study, just as a possibility. And it's since you're going to have Aaron, John, and Holly here, I have been trying to get a street light / playground light replaced. They've all said they're working on it, but that's been a year and a half. Maybe we can get a little bit of momentum around that and get that fixed. So once again, pro on number 12, please approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Ms. Beakey.
Good evening, Ann Beakey, B-U-E-C-H-E. I live at 937 North Center Street. And this evening I wanted to talk about an issue that was on your agenda last meeting regarding the trees at Fairgrove Avenue. I received a call from one of my neighbors who lives near that house, near that area, with whom I've been collaborating on increasing the native plants and pollinator pathways. And as you know, for about 5 or 6 years now, I've been advocating about moving towards a urban forest approach to our trees, as well as retaining as many trees as we can, because as we know, mature trees value is hundreds of thousands of dollars in value in terms of air cleaning, water cleaning, etc. It's already very sad to me, and I was very aware of the fact that that street lost one of its most historic trees that was over 250 years old that we took down. It was in the right-of-way, we being the city of Royal Oak. I think that was a tragedy in and of itself, and it shouldn't have been done because the stump was enormous and very strong, and I'm sure there was a way to prop up, if not keep the tree. And I wanted to express my appreciation for those of you that brought that out of the consent agenda to bring onto the table here and discuss and ask for other options, as well as pointing out that if we change from a gravel street to a concrete road, I'm sorry, I should have led with that this is about the paving of that particular 1 block area. That if we go from gravel to concrete, A, the traffic will be faster, B, the area will be less walkable, C, we will lose those trees, and losing the trees will be very inconsistent with our current master plan, that emphasizes neighborhood preservation, our sustainability and climate action plan, which emphasizes the trees, your 3-year strategic plan, which you just approved a short while ago, which is also notes about the trees and retaining the trees. So instead of paving the street and getting rid of the gravel road, I would recommend we think about a historic preservation project for the trees, the heritage trees. And if we don't already have in place a way for residents, just like they request or suggest they would like to have something paved, to suggest how they would have those trees registered as historic and important to our city. And those trees that would be lost at this point are actually on private property. This would be a road impacting the trees on private property, which I know we talk a lot about the rights of citizens to retain what's on their property as well as tear it down. And lastly, I think there's a disconnect at this moment. We now have a plan in place and several plans that reflect that we want to work well with the trees, but our practice even allows to request a 27-foot road or 21-foot road, and that was brought up as a 51% out of with 2 out of 4 households. My point is, I think we should give them better options, and that petition shouldn't have come forward at all, or it should have been rejected outright due to the trees and neighborhood preservation. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, who's next? Yes, sir. Mr. Steer.
Hi, my name is Christian Steer. I live we own the home at 421 Forest. I came here a month ago to seek to have the special assessment that was just talked about raised and gathered signatures to go to the next step. And after the discussion that took place last month, I appreciate you guys taking it into consideration and moving to the next step. That said, I think the other residents that were not in favor of paving Fairgrove made some very fair points and raised some very valid concerns, as did I. After talking to Ms. Donahue, she and the engineering department worked very hard on proposing 3 new options for that road that would save the established trees on that street. Option 1 is to have a non-traditional 15-foot street stretched from Hawthorne to Forest, but it would be one way, traveling south, no parking on the street allowed. This option would take out one of those established trees. Option 2 would be to have a 21-foot street starting at Hawthorne, extending towards Forest again, but opening up to a 27-foot street as it approaches Forest. That again would only allow parking on one side of the street for the residents that already are able to park there. And this option would also take out one of the established trees. Option 3 would be to have a 27-foot wide street starting at Forest and only extending 149 feet, which is the middle of the block, saving all of the established trees and allowing all of the residents to park on the side of their home still. Based on the paperwork needed for this option, our residents, along with 503 Forest, would only need to sign for that option, as Ms. Donahue had said, and we've already done so, and this paperwork has already been turned in and will be at the January meeting. This allows my wife and I and the residents of 503 to take advantage of the street paving during the existing road millage, which would save a substantial amount of dollars. And it also allows the residents of Hawthorne to continue to park at the sides of their homes, and only allows 2 residents of Forest to be assessed the special assessment, where we would only be paying for it and the other residents would not. All of the established trees on Hawthorne residences would remain. So in short, a new proposal will be reviewed in the early January timeframe, and it's already been put in, and I'm suggesting to vote against the full 27 feet street as it would extend from Hawthorne to Forest in its entirety. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Steer. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. My name is Carolyn Moore. I live at 4316 Buckingham Road. We reported a pretty, I'll say, impactful traffic cut through and speeding issue on our road. Our road, Buckingham, goes between Greenfield and Woodward, and people cut through it. In fact, it shows up on Google Maps and Waze Maps as a shortcut through, so that people don't have to go Greenfield to 14 Mile, they miss that light, and 14 Mile to Woodward, they miss that light as well. But recently, besides the cut-through traffic, 18-wheelers, all kinds of commercial traffic, and high speeds going down our street. We have a park at the corner of our street at Greenfield, and it's making it increasingly difficult for children and adults in the area to want to cross our street to get to this new beautiful park. I've been working with the traffic committee, and they did a great job at doing the traffic studies, and I believe their recommendation is on tonight's agenda item, and I would encourage the committee to accept the Buckingham at least portion of that so that we can move to the next steps of their recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go in the back right here in the corner from the blue jacket.
Tim O'Donnell, 1212 East 14 Mile Road. Recently, I had a city employee at my home that I was conversing with about the harassment that myself, my family, and my property have suffered while living in this city. The city employee offered up the suggestion that I please not assume all city employees are like the ones committing the harassment. I would like that to be a view I eventually accept as reality. In order to do so, I first need to confirm that there are city employees who do the right thing even when it's difficult. I would like the city council to encourage the city employees that have witnessed residents being harassed or threatened to report this to the city manager, city council, and local FBI through the email address michigancorruption@fbi.gov. I would like this information to be communicated to all city employees by email. I have recordings of a handful of city employees witnessing harassment, and what I currently assume is them being forced to participate in the harassment. At this moment, I am assuming their silence on it is because of a fear of retaliation from the department head that orchestrated it. I share this same fear daily for the entire time I've documented being harassed by this department head. This harassment these employees witnessed could include purposefully miscategorizing assessment data, an example of which would be purposely removing low-cost arm's-length transactions from assessing data in order to pass a sales ratio analysis for preserving or increasing municipal revenue, or purposefully using slightly larger measurements of a property to cause financial damage to a property owner, or willfully misgrouping the house as ranch, bungalow, or other in an effort to increase financial damage to a property owner by using incorrect comparables. It could also have been them being directed to enter, roam, and photograph a property when the information needed could be easily obtained from the sidewalk view or from ArcGIS and has been documented as being used from these two resources previously. It could also be them being directed to enter a parcel's boundary and willfully passing the home's frontage line when it's been documented the assessing office has knowledge that they are not legally allowed to enter the property without consent from the homeowner. It also could have been an employee threatening a property owner with higher taxation if they did not allow the employee to enter the home. If a city employee participated or witnessed any of these described scenarios or other harassment, I would like you to encourage them to show myself, the rest of the community, and their fellow city employees that not all city employees are like the ones who have shown a behavioral history of harassing residents. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. O'Donnell. All right, who's next? Yes, sir, in the back.
Good evening. Robert Carey. I'm the owner of the business that resides at 621 East 4th Street. I'm respectfully requesting a no load or a loading zone in front of my business, and I believe Holly has the information. It was approved by the traffic committee, and I'm just looking for some relief, a little bit of safety for both citizens and for employees because of where the building is located. It's at the boulevard and it's very narrow, and I have people that park there all day long, and then semi trucks come in and the only place I can unload it is in the street, and it blocks the bike path and part of the road so that people can't drive through. That's all I'm requesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Wagman?
Hi, Janice Wagman. Tonight I want to thank all the people who were involved with the senior task force. We finally have a plan that's being presented tonight. tons and tons of hours, tons of people working on it, and they've really put out a good product here, and I'm really grateful that they've done it. Thank you, Charlene, for being the commission representative on that board all this time. And for all, I see a lot of the members are here tonight too, so I want to thank everyone that was involved. It's a wonderful plan. It's got great goals in it. The one thing it doesn't have is how we're going to accomplish those goals and who will be responsible for doing that. I went to an EAB meeting the other day, last week I think it was, to see how they were handling the SCAP, how they were merging those into their meeting agendas and how they were handling going forward on those plans. And it was a very important part of their meetings. A very important part was working towards the goals of that. Starting in 2017, I asked for a standalone senior advisory board. When the senior task force was formed, I dropped it for what's been 5 years now. I haven't asked for a standalone senior board. But I went through the Parks and Rec and Senior Advisory Board minutes for the last umpteen years, and there's never anything on there for seniors that is a proactive. There's reports. The only thing that I can recall in the last 10 years is the handicap parking that Jeff Plachta brought forward as part of being on the senior task force. So I don't think that that's the right group for this to be passed off into. And although I appreciate the staff is committed to providing quarterly updates, I believe just like the EAB and the SCAP plan, this plan needs its own board. Its own board with representatives not only from the public, but from the city staff. On behalf of Royal Oak seniors, I'm asking again for the creation of a senior advisory board to not only focus on implementing this plan, but also represent the needs of the growing senior population in the city of Royal Oak. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Ms. Harrison?
Sorry. Walking slowly. Laura Harrison, Royal Oak taxpayer. First, I have a suggestion. Do not, and I stress not, rush the master plan. The last master plan that we did in the 90s, I was in the other building. But I was sitting in 1, 2, Jim was there, and I was there when we did the master plan. It can be a grueling process. We kept extending the closing date. Wanted to be sure the residents knew what was happening, and they had to have their say. That was when I had my store. I used to have residents come in and ask me questions at the store, which was great because they knew where I was. They could find me. Some areas were easy, others were not. I encourage meetings and more meetings with the neighborhoods. Go to the neighborhoods, talk to those people. The other thing I really suggest is broadcast your meetings about the master plan and what you're talking about so that people that can't get out, like I haven't been able to for a few weeks, can't get out, they can sit and watch what is going on at the meeting and they know what's going on so that you don't get a bunch of hysterical people. I also, this is another topic. Is the Elks Park a block grant park? Is it going to melt into Normandy Oaks next door? That's my question. The city needs to update a program to redo non-block grant parks. We really need some help on some of them. A group of local business owners and property owners had raised monies to update one of the non-block grant parks in the north area, Gundyre. It never got off the ground. In the end, the monies collected were not used, and the park was never done, and still isn't. And we have several parks. Star Park is beginning to look very, very tired. We voted to take the monies and use it as a memorial to a former city commissioner, Kim Gibbs. I am requesting that the city rename the park area that we used and we take care of in her honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. All right, anyone else wish to come up and speak at public comment tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Van Kiersboek. I live at 420 Hawthorne Avenue, and I'm just up here to talk about Fairgrove, paving Fairgrove. Of course, we opposed the original plan, the petition, because we wanted to save the 4 trees, the large historic trees. And I wanted to thank the engineers, Holly Donahue. I'm sorry, I forgot my paper at home that I had everything on. Holly Donahue and Steve, because I called them and they gave me a lot of time. They explained a lot of things to us and were very respectful. And she's come up with some other options for that road. Hopefully the one that saves the most trees is the one, all the trees. We want the one that saves all 4 large trees. And that's what we would sign on to, but we weren't offered a petition. So that's all I have to say. And also I wanted to thank the commission for considering this option, because I know it was unusual and that there was a majority, even though it was a narrow majority. So thank you very much for respecting us and taking that seriously, the idea of saving these large trees in our city, especially on public lands. It's one place that you actually can make a difference so easily, relatively easy. Well, not really, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Bill Harrison, Royal Oak. You can relax. I'm here to do a PSA. Last night, I put the trash out at the boulevard for pickup today, and someone took the trash bag in a box that had a mailing label on it. Concerned me. We shred everything that has any kind of an account number, but I was not aware that you really should shred everything that has your name and address. I now understand that identity thieves use the name and address information to change the delivery address at the post office, so bank statements, etc., are sent to them. This gives them access to bank account numbers. The post office will not tag, I was there this morning, post office will not tag an address to preclude change of address. I guess my question is, why then is it that they can advise you by email of every piece of mail that will be delivered that day? Somebody needs to get with them. The only thing they offered was they suggested a check with the post office once a week. It's ridiculous. The police department will not file an incident report because taking trash is not a crime. Their advice is to take the trash out, a good advice, to take the trash out in the morning of the scheduled pickup. It's going to be tough for me to get up that early in the morning now that I'm retired. They do have a brochure, Identity Theft, a Recovery Plan.
but that's an after-the-fact issue. I'm primarily concerned about property deed protection at the county. I understand that you can request notification of any activity from the county. I'm going to work on that tomorrow. My banks have recommended online banking, something that I always said was above my pay grade and have resisted, but I understand the why now. In order to eliminate paper statements by mail that can be picked up by somebody. Just some thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Yes, sir, in the back corner.
My name is Paul Webb, 2704 North Wilson Avenue. Come before you today in support of item number 9, the Aging in Place Action Plan. I am, other than Commissioner Douglas, one of the original task force members all the way back in, I think, 2018, officially. A lot of work went into it, not only in all the task force meetings, but also working group meetings, but also focus groups and surveys and refocus groups and more surveys. So I think it's a good plan. I really look forward to watching all these changes come into play. As a lifelong Royal Oak resident, I'm looking forward to staying here. I don't see that changing anytime soon, so looking forward to eventually aging in place when that time comes. So thanks again. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thanks.
Yes, sir, in the back.
Hi, my name is Ray Emerson. I live at 2256 Benjamin, and on item number 10, I just want to say I'm in support of the speed humps. The traffic committee is want to implement, and I think it's a great idea. I will be impacted. My driveway is right near one, but I think it's a great idea. I'm in support.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson. In the back corner.
Hello, thank you for having me up here. I'm here today to talk about the trees. I love trees. And one other reason I came, I'm from 210 Hawthorne. My name is Nicole Heddes. One other reason I came to live here 20 years ago was simply because of those large mature trees. The old neighborhood created a sense of peace and well-being where I wanted to raise my family, which I have raised 2 kids. And I chose not to live in a place like Shelby Township, a younger community where it's clear-cut and you have all those dinky trees. And it's fine for, that's their vibe. That's not the Royal Oak vibe. The Royal Oak vibe is we have heritage, we have a history. It's historical. And what is the testament to that history? It's the mature trees. That's how we know that we are a mature city, because of the trees. That's it. So I'm asking you to please ask yourselves, what is it about Royal Oak that makes us unique? And if you do not say mature trees, you are missing something. I love Royal Oak. I'm so glad I came here. But every time I see a tree get torn down, and I see a lot of them because I'm at the subdivision between 11 Mile and Gardenia off of Main. That's where I'm at. And there's a ton of trees getting torn down because a ton of houses are getting torn down. It has changed the landscape, and I ask that you please leave those 4 trees. They mean so much more. Thank you.
All right, who's next? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is George Miller. I live at 2312 Benjamin Avenue. I too am supportive of what the traffic committee recommendations have come up. For about the past year, I've been working with the engineer, Mrs. Donahue, and with Lieutenant Millard from the Royal Oak Police Department very successfully, to be honest with you. I mean, the police have really tried to assist us with slowing the traffic down on Benjamin. I've lived there for 53 years. I've grown up there. I raised 4 daughters there. And now every morning before school and after school, I got 9 grandkids that show up. And the speeds of the people that are coming off of Woodward Avenue and going southbound even on Benjamin Avenue are incredible. The traffic study showed from back in 2019 that the increase in traffic was there. A lot of that due, as the lady from Buckingham said, is because of the Google apps and the Waze apps show people how to cut through to get into Crooks, to get 13, to get to Normandy, whatever the case may be. We can't stop that, we understand that, but we can slow these cars down. Last year, my granddaughter kicked the ball out into the street. It hit the windshield of this woman's car. It was a soft dodgeball. They were actually just playing kickball on the street. This woman was on her phone, never even saw the ball hit her windshield, never even slowed down, just kept going and had to be doing between 30 and 35 miles an hour. This is a 25 mile an hour street. I think the traffic committee, again, has come up with some good recommendations that I think will assist us. And so I would urge you to approve those tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Amy Shaner. I live at 2316 Benjamin Avenue, and I'm here regarding the same topic, number 10 for the speed bumps. I moved into our house 20 years ago. My kids were small, and I never realized how bad the traffic was on our street then, and it's only gotten worse. We had a dog run out and get, hit and killed. The person didn't even stop. Now we have a hard time even backing out of our driveway. So I really am in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Anybody else tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Becca Cheesum, and I live at 606 West Lincoln Avenue in Royal Oak. And I just wanted to speak in support of the Aging in Place plan. I am not like Paul. I've not been on there for 5 years, but I have been on there for just over a year on the task force, and I'm just really impressed with the engagement with that work. I got the opportunity to chair the Community Health and Services Working Group, and we had a really wonderful group of residents who, all of whom had some experience working in health or senior services, but were also residents, so they got to fill the expert and resident role, and they were just super engaged. We had a number of representatives from different hospitals or organizations in the area come and speak to our working group. So there was just a lot of information gathering and a lot of engagement. We took the plan on the road. It was at the senior center. It was we went to the towers where we got feedback along the way. And I'm just really proud to have been able to have a part of that final running it home, part of the planning, and just looking for your support tonight in approving that plan. And I can't wait to see it be put in action, because I also hope to age in place here in Royal Oak. So thanks.
Anybody else wish to speak in public comment tonight? Going once, going twice. All right, we'll close public comment and bring the meeting back to this side of the table. Really appreciate everyone coming up and sharing ideas, thoughts, concerns, support, and bringing certain things to our attention. I'm very grateful for that. This brings us to item 7, which is the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull anything off the consent agenda? Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, Mayor, items C and G.
C and G. Anybody else? Commissioner Macy?
H.
H. Okay. And that's it, C, G, and H. And we'll move those as when we approve the agenda as item 15, C, G, and H. Clerk Hallis can help me with that cadence. Okay. So the consent agenda now consists of meeting minutes from the 28th, City Commission special meeting, American Rescue Plan Act work session November 29th, claims December 2nd, December 2nd special pay, and December 13, 2022, approval of purchase orders, approval of maintenance funding agreement with Centennial Commons, and receive and file the non-action items, the October 2022 investment report. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read? Motion by Commissioner Perush. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, this brings us to item 8, which is the acceptance of the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022 financial audit and annual comprehensive financial report. There are multiple parties that could kick this off. Nate, are you kicking it off, or is Deborah?
I'll go ahead and get started
Okay.
with it. I want to thank the mayor and commissioners for allowing us to present to you this evening the results of our financial audit for the year ended June 30th, 2022. Our lead auditor from Raymond, Nate Balderman, is here with us this evening. He will give you a quick overview. We have reviewed these reports in depth with the Audit Review Committee, which met on November 22nd. The Audit Review Committee has accepted the reports and has recommended them to you for your acceptance. And with that, I'll let Nate go ahead and share his results.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and City Commission. As she indicated, we went over this in a lot of detail with the Audit Review Committee, as we do each year. Overall, just the results from an audit perspective is you received an unmodified opinion, which is clean. We have issued final documents. At the time, they were draft documents, but there were no major changes from that time that we reviewed it with the committee. We also performed a single audit, which is over your federal awards, and had no findings to report in that as well. So overall, once again, a very clean report, as you've become accustomed to see, and just wanted to thank the city and its staff for another great year.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Any questions? Let's say I had the privilege of serving on that committee for, I think, over a decade now. I'm not sure how long I've been on it. Great group of people. Mr. Mayton is usually here tonight, but I see he wasn't able to make it tonight. But yeah, we appreciate the work of the entire finance team. Director Lichtenberg came in and took over and hit the ground running. And Mr. DeCamp has done an amazing job as well. And of course, your firm, Mr. Balderman, always prepares stuff for us to look at, understand, review. We go over it in painstaking detail, and happy with the results. So, no questions? Any motions to accept? Commissioner Douglas?
Yes, I move approval of the proposed resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas, second by Commissioner Hunt. Discussion? All right, with none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. The much anticipated approval of the Royal Oak Aging in Place Plan and Senior Services Aging in Place Task Force Sunset Provision. I see Ms. Barkman's here. Yes. How are you doing this evening?
Good.
Good?
Yeah.
Not great? Just good?
Good.
Okay. We'll take it.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm pleased to present on behalf of the Senior Services Aging in Place Task Force this evening the plan to help seniors age in place, and this is for your consideration and approval this evening. As you may remember and has been alluded to earlier this evening during public comment, this group was created back in 2018 to help address the growing population of seniors. So according to SEMCOG, projections are that we will see a 34% increase in seniors who are 65 to 84, I believe, and something like 179% increase, which is huge, and seniors over 85. And so when we think about that population growth and how that impacts our services need to grow with that, but also what can we do to help improve the quality of our services as well. And so this plan addresses both of those pieces. Throughout the past few years, the task force has really valued community engagement and has done a lot of community engagement. So just to kind of recap, some of that happened pre-pandemic, and so you may see residents recognize I was a part of this back then, but whatever happened to it, and we took a little bit of a pandemic pause. But just to kind of recap, there were 697 surveys that were completed. The task force members conducted 7 focus groups with 135 residents participating. This past spring, we had 6 different working groups, one for each of the different domains, with 54 different members representing both folks with expertise related to their domain as well as residents. Those groups met a combined of about 44 times. During the month of October, we conducted a public engagement process to receive public comment and feedback on the plan. Through that process, we held 3 different public meeting or opportunity presentations. So one at Barton Towers, one at Royal Oak Manor, and at the Senior Center. Residents were able to review and provide feedback online. All of those comments that we received during the month of October during that public engagement process are attached in your memo as attachment 2. So you can see all of those and how those comments kind of fit back into the plan. I would like to take a moment this evening to have any of the task force members, and I know Paul had to leave, to ask any of the task force members or working group members to please just stand up. And so we can take a moment to say thank you for your service. Those members gave a tremendous amount of time over the past few years, and I think together we've really worked hard to create a great plan. So the first resolution before you this evening is to approve the plan. If you would like to approve the plan, the second part gets into what happens next. And there's been, I think, a lot of evolving conversation between November and December about what should happen next, what could happen next. The task force was really tasked to create the plan and get to this point. These members do not have terms. Some of them have turned over. Different members have stepped away for different reasons, but they don't have terms. They're set up a little bit more like a task force that's there for a defined purpose and not like a regular board and commission. Throughout the next phase of this process, I will continue to support the plan. As alluded to in the memo, my plan is to continue to communicate. We have a tremendous amount of residents who spend a lot of time working on this plan, and we don't want to drop that communication no matter where this board or where the continued reporting happens. We don't want to just stop communicating with everyone who contributed, and no matter what board we report out to, we cannot provide, we don't have enough seats on any of those boards for all of them. So we will continue that communication through the website, through email updates, through the Senior Times. I'll keep writing little blurbs for that and reminding folks of where they can find that progress. In the interim, if the body wishes to sunset the task force at this time, you can do that. We will look at this, what board or what do we need a separate senior board? Previously we've had that, then it got merged in with Parks and Recreation, and as I learned today, actually the ice arena board as well was all merged into Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services. And maybe that needs to look at something new again and see if Senior Services should be split out. So if you want to, we would address that through the boards and commissions review, which would be probably in about March. Timing wise. So that's what I have. I'm happy to answer any questions on either of these elements.
Questions? Okay. Commissioner Macy?
It's not really a question, but I didn't want Commissioner Douglas to have to start by patting herself on her back. So I wanted but I wanted to start the patting for her. So just again, thank you to all the people who have done this hard work, both the people who were serving on this task force and they showed up and gave comments and gave feedback. It was really great engagement that we had over this time, and I think this plan really shows that, because the breadth of the goals and the depth of them that really get specific about some of the things that we could do. And reading through them, you can see that there are some little pieces of low-hanging fruit that hopefully we can get going on right away, but the fact that it's laid out in terms of when we're going to be able to get working on it, and it's just so comprehensive. I mean, I know that's how it's designed to deal with all these different modules. I can't remember what the word is, but it's very impressive, and it's really a labor of love that has been the whole community working on this for all this time. So thank you to Commissioner Douglas for her leadership, but also to everybody who's been participating in this for all this time. I'm really glad to have this, and I have a feeling that we are probably headed for a separate committee, because this is a lot of work. So I don't want to let any of it go. But I'm sure some people will keep the board accountable right now to make sure we get started before that happens in March. So, and thank you, I'm sorry, thank you to everyone else. And thank you, Mrs. Barkman, as well, for shepherding this along and producing this beautiful document. Really appreciative. Thank you.
I'll ask Commissioner Douglas to say a few words, since she helped lead this up from the commission side.
As a planner, I became aware of the topic, looking at the baby boom, and looking at the topic of our aging population back in 2013, where I was writing articles about it for planning publications and really becoming aware of it, and then looking at our city and at how our city is kind of a microcosm of what we're seeing across the country. And that was what really inspired me to push for this process. And AARP really provided us with the framework and model to follow. And I think that has served our community well. Ms. Barkman has thanked all of the participants, and I will add to it as well the level of both committed residents and people with expertise guiding our work groups has made this, I think, a plan that will have great value for our community. The interesting challenge, I think, is for the city staff is integrating these results with the other plans that we are in the process of working on or have approved. We have the sustainability plan. We're working to spend federal dollars that might be able to support some of the recommendations of this plan. We're doing a master plan. We have every 2 years or every so often we approve a strategic plan for the city. And I think the real challenge is going to be that matrix of all of those needs and wishes and finding the places where there are commonalities among those plans and making those our priorities. But with a focus always to help the people in our community as they age, so they can stay in their homes or at least stay in our city. So I'm thrilled. That's all.
Commissioner Perush?
First of all, I want to lend my congratulations to this group and to all the members of the task force that were involved with this. This is an incredible piece of work, and it's a fabulous foundation for so many things in the community going forward. Not only within our own plans, recreation and senior services and so on, but also for other community organizations that are not necessarily city organizations, that they can use this information and build upon their own foundation of services to an aging community as well. So I add my congratulations to this group. They did a fabulous, fabulous job. In just one of the casual conversations that I had with someone about this topic over the past couple of months, the issue of the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee came up, and the thought was, well, it was probably created when the city built the Mahaney Meininger Center. That's what it was created for, to be a task force to find a location for that center and so on and get it going. And I thought, it's older than that. That committee stretches back a lot further than that. So being the nerd that I am, I decided to go back into city records and actually figure out exactly how it all came about, that Senior Advisory Committee. And the information that I found, I think, lends some information that we can find useful in terms of implementing this plan, based upon what was done many years ago in the community. The idea of a Senior Citizens Advisory Committee started here at the Commission anyway, on April 12th, 1976, when James Whitfield, who was chairman of the Christian Social Concern Committee of the First Baptist Church. The First Baptist Church was the church that's on Main Street that I should have noted down the name of it, what it is now. It's across the street from the hotel. It's just north of 11 Mile. It used to be First Baptist Church. Genesis. Yeah. Thank you. Back in the days, it was a very progressive church. The members of that church, including the pastor, were very active in a lot of social issues. And they had a Christian Social Concern Committee that met regularly to talk about social issues. And they had met to decide how to get a senior citizens program going within the city framework. They thought that the long-term goal would be to find more housing for seniors because Royal Oak Manor had just been constructed, but there was a growing need. They already had a waiting list. But they also recognized that things like a hot lunch program, home visitation, a drop-in center, chore assistance, transportation, do all these things sound familiar? Were issues that they were concerned about, that seniors had needs for, and were not being met. They had also indicated that under the Older Americans Act, which was passed in 1975, both the Area Agency on Aging network had been developed in the state of Michigan, and also the Oakland Livingston Human Services Agency had been established primarily to help with poverty issues, but that of course morphed into also assisting with senior issues and the senior population that was in poverty. So their suggestion was for the city to establish a Senior Citizens Advisory Board. The city was pretty interested in that idea based upon the information that they had. So they directed the staff to kind of investigate how you could do that and what its role would be. And the city manager investigated with staff and came back with a report in the month that essentially said, we're already doing some things for seniors, like our recreation programs have some programs for seniors. We don't have a building, but we have some programs for seniors. The school district was doing some programs for seniors. They actually had a hot lunch program for seniors within the school district. But there was no building, there was no center, and there was no coordination necessarily amongst all the agencies. But in May of that year, 1976, the City Commission actually passed a resolution creating the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. May 24th, 1976 was the beginning date of that committee. Very broad scope within the resolution. It was a very short resolution. Just said, well-being of the senior citizens is important. No organized body presently is created, so we're going to create one. That was basically how the resolution was created. But from that, not only did the city start to consider how to coordinate services, but also it also started looking for a location for an actual center. There was the city knew that Clara Barton Junior High School, which used to be where the Barton Towers is now, was going to close at the end of the school year in 1979. That was a possibility for some people, but because it was so huge, there was no elevator. That was eventually decided that was not and the city eventually decided to look for their own site somewhere in the city on city property and actually design a center specifically for those types of services, which is why the center is where it is now. It was dedicated in 1990 and then added on a little bit in 1993. So it's been around for a while. But even though the center was established, the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee was still very active. They did a very comprehensive transportation survey of at least the seniors they could reach in 1980. That was 40 years ago. Very comprehensive. What they did was they held 2 public hearings through the Meals on Wheels program, which was how they could capture at least a group of seniors, which was conducted at the First Baptist Church. And it also published a survey in the Tribune. They had 309 surveys returned with all kinds of information about what kind of transportation do you use, all kinds of stuff. It's very lengthy. With 90 respondents indicating that they owned a car, and 219 say they did not own a car and relied exclusively on public transportation. So the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee was, back in those days, was very active in working on specific issues about how to assist seniors, and not only in the area of transportation, but also services once the building was created as to how to reach seniors and coordinate services for them. We got involved with, of course, the block grant program, which is the home assist program, repair assist program, some community outreach to homebound seniors and so on, and the programs developed. But the temptation always when you get to that point is to say, okay, we're done now. We've got it in place, we've got a building, we've got staff, we've got programs, so we're done. And for all intents and purposes, that's kind of how it's been for the last 40 years, until we've established this task force. And I think the lesson is, number one, I think reestablishing an independent senior advisory committee is a good idea. Not necessarily that it has to meet monthly, although it could, even quarterly, to keep citizens involved with how the task force outline is going forward. But also, I think it's a reminder that you can't just get things in place and then walk away for 40 years and figure we're finished. I think we need a body within the community to keep these issues in front of us on a regular basis, and to keep everything that has been laid out in the task force moving forward. And I think the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, independent from Parks and Rec, is the way to go. So anyway, thank you again to all the task force people. Thanks to Shar for doing excellent work, and for all the staff people that did excellent work. I think it's remarkable, and I look forward to seeing what's going to happen next.
Commissioner Hogg?
I just want to echo what everyone else up here has said. Thank you to all of the members of the task force, to Commissioner Douglas and all of the staff who put their time and energy and effort into getting this document together and these programs in place. I think I'll be using these programs, sooner rather than later. So I'm grateful that this is in place. But if we were to have some sort of committee or some sort of additional group or commission in place for this, it will take some time. Is there anything that can be done in the meantime to keep this momentum going? Some of the low-hanging fruit that Commissioner Macy indicated is there. Is there anything that can be done in the meantime to kind of further this along?
Yeah, so in the meantime, the work is not going to stop. This will continue to be my role in working with departments to implement things. There's a lot of different departments that have pieces of this pie, so to speak. And so I'll continue to be working with those departments. What kind of makes a nice leadway is that hopefully you guys are going to approve this tonight, and our budgets, we're in the process of figuring out our budgets for the next fiscal year, right? So that's going to be kind of that next step. My hope is to start really addressing some of those low-hanging fruits that really don't cost a ton of money in the rest of the next 6 months till we get to the next fiscal year, and have to start dealing with some of the budgetary elements to this. So in no way will the work stop, whether there's a board there or not. And we can look at that as a part in what that might look like. And we'll go back and do some research with other communities to see what their senior boards look like, and what might be a good fit and what's kind of a good fit with what people want to continue to address with a separate board, and what that might look like. So we'll kind of continue to evolve that along with the boards and commissions review process. And in the meantime, it makes sense, at least to me, to have all the senior stuff in one spot. And so I will be working with John to make sure that that board is hearing from me, and in the meantime is understanding what the plan is, and handling any updates or anything as needed through that time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Douglas, did you?
Yeah, Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution approving the Aging in Place plan.
We have a motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. All right, discussion. I think we had a lot of discussion, Commissioner Macy.
So I just want to add really quickly on Commissioner Hunt's point, that I think you sort of said this at the end, that it seems like you should be coming to the Parks and Rec and Senior Advisory Board meetings and bringing this to us. Like that's, like if this is sunsetting there, then at least in the interim before we have this other board up.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Okay, that's just making sure I understood that.
Yeah, I'll just add thank you to everybody who partook. I can tell you back in the day when we had merged the boards together, there was a general sentiment. We had issues with quorum and attendance and all of that. And there's clearly a new energy, a reinvigoration, and a more transparent understanding about the importance of aging in place and the dignity that comes with it, that all of us are going up against the clock no matter where you are, what stage in life. And so I think that the base that we have here is really going to find itself being sort of the launching point for, I won't say a task force, I'll say a committee that will, as part of its duties, really have to think and organize itself to touch every part of what we're doing in the city. Because when I think about our housing issues, planning and zoning are important. We got to have advocates on the Aging in Place Task Force or committee, working with all of the other divisions. It's not just recreation. It's dealing with our mobility plan. It's dealing with our walkability plan. It's dealing with housing affordability. It touches so many different things that, the job will be tough, but I think that through this process and through this reinvigoration, we've learned a lot. And the most important thing is we carry that momentum forward. So I'm eager to see the outcome of it and eager to see many years from now, how it will impact me personally. Although was it you, Ms. Wagman, that says 50 years as a senior, 50 years old? Okay, all right, I'll be getting my free coffee before I know it. But in all seriousness, it's it's like trees. We were talking about trees, and we will talk about trees. You got to plant, you got to water, you got to harvest, or not harvest, but you got to, continue to feed into it. So this will be a great forum to do it, and a great launch pad to do it as well. So with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, there's a second resolution here, Mayor. The Aging in Place Senior Services Task Force having completed its stated mission statement, I move approval of the resolution dissolving the task force.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Hunt. Discussion? Just for clarity, this isn't dissolving the mission. It's just transforming all of that energy temporarily into the Parks and Rec and then into a broader task force, hopefully. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barkman. Thank you, task force members. All right, this brings us to item 10, which is the approval of the November 2022 Traffic Committee resolutions. I see Chief Engineer Donahue here, or City Engineer. Gotta take off my work hat and put on my city hat.
That works. Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. Tonight I'm here to present the recommendations from the Royal Oak Citizens Traffic Committee from their November 22nd meeting. I have 7 proposed resolutions for you tonight, and I'll note that the Traffic Committee did vote unanimously on all 7 recommendations. 2 of the items were tabled, so that's why some of the letters are missing from the resolutions, and we'll bring those to our January Traffic Committee meeting. So our first resolution is a little bit unusual. It's focused more on a general policy as opposed to a specific location. So my thought was to present that to you first, maybe have some dialogue, discussion, because our decision with that item will kind of affect some of the subsequent items. So I will get into that right now. So this is item 6A, which is related to probably the most common request we get, which is slow down people on our streets. We would like to have speed humps in our neighborhoods. Many cities are allowing for regular speed hump installation, including our neighbors of Ferndale and Birmingham.
And so we really wanted, as a staff, to set a more specific policy so that we knew when to move forward and when not to regarding these types of requests. Currently, we have one street in the city that has speed humps. That's Merrill Avenue. You might remember we did a whole study back in 2021 of a bunch of cut-through streets, and that was one of the recommendations that came out of that study. So we have one street with 2 speed humps, and we have seen that has improved a little bit, and it really improved cut-through traffic specifically on that street. When we find speed issues on local streets, we in the past have recommended traffic calming measures. So things like calming islands in the middle of the road, bump outs, chicanes, although we haven't installed any of those yet. These are typically pretty expensive when you compare those to speed humps. They can require some more maintenance, and they often eliminate parking on residential streets. So I'm not looking to eliminate that as a possibility, but it would be nice to have maybe another idea in our toolkit that we could look to. According to the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the average speeds between speed humps are reduced by about 20 to 25%, and approximately 20% of traffic is expected to be diverted. So again, that helps with cut through. There is about a 3 to 5 second delay per speed hump for fire trucks, and up to 10 seconds if there's an ambulance who's trying to transport a patient over a speed hump. Based on research from nearby communities and discussion with city departments, and then finally bringing it to the traffic committee, we came up with a list of criteria that we would use to gauge if speed humps should be recommended or not. So I will get to that. So the first item is we want this road really just to serve neighborhoods. We obviously don't want these on our major roads, our mile roads, half-mile roads even. So by saying that the road should be classified as a local road under the NFC classification, that basically rules out all the major roads, anything that's above 25 miles per hour, and really just focuses it on the residential streets. But it does include streets like Vincetta, which you might think of as more of a major road, but it's also kind of a minor road. So it opens the door for streets like that we don't want a lot of people speeding on that street, but it is an important street that kind of gets people through the city. The second item is that the street should be paved already. That's kind of a no-brainer, I think. The street must not be on a primary fire route. It should not be a high priority street for snow plowing. And while not an issue currently, maybe one day it will be, we don't want it to be on a primary school bus route or a transit route. We want to make sure the police department, fire department, and DPS has the chance to object if there's something else kind of interesting or unusual about that street, to say these really won't work for us and here's why. There must be space so that we can put these speed humps 300 to 600 feet apart. That's the recommended spacing for them to actually do their job. And there needs to be space to install them so that they're not right in front of somebody's property driveway, and we certainly don't want these within intersections. The big measurement that we'll be looking at is the 85th percentile speed as measured by a 3-day traffic study should be 28 miles per hour or higher. So if it's 27, 26, 25, that's pretty normal for a 25 mile per hour street. We normally treat that as don't take any action. Once you hit 28 miles per hour, that's when you start looking at speed control measures. Also, we want average daily traffic volumes to be at least 300 vehicles per day as measured by a 3-day traffic count. Number 8, we kind of went back and forth at the table on and settled with 65% of residents should be in favor of the installation. And the big question mark, I think, for the committee was agree to pay for the installation cost, or should the city pick up that cost? It kind of opens the door to a lot of questions if we want to special assess residents to install these. As you know, that's a pretty lengthy process to set up the special assessment district for what is relatively low cost. So that's something, this was their recommendation, but they were certainly willing and hopeful that the commission would comment on that. They also want to make sure that properties on either side of each speed hump, 100% of those are in favor, because if it's right in front of your house or right next to your house, you might be a little more affected than anybody else. And so if we create petitions for residents, that would include a diagram that shows where we recommend they go. And so people know what they're getting into if they sign that petition. And then there can be some back and forth and some moving and discussion if need be. But the idea is inform everybody up front and don't have any surprises. The speed humps should consist of asphalt or concrete. That was a recommendation from DPS. They were not a big fan of the rubber ones that we installed on Merrill Avenue. Just a ton of work to bolt those into the road. I think it was like 1 day of work to do just one speed hump. So they requested that we move forward with paving materials instead. And then the final item here is just a recommendation that came up from the traffic committee meeting. They wanted to make sure that we still had some discretion to bring items back to the traffic committee. Maybe it doesn't meet every threshold perfectly, but it's close, or there's extenuating circumstances. So just kind of giving the discretion to at least bring it to the table for consideration. So I'll pause there and await your discussion.
There's been a lot of pushback over the years on speed humps. What might be the objections? Why might we have been reluctant to install them in the past?
So snow plowing is usually the first one people think of, and while snow plows can work around them, it is a bit of an inconvenience, and snow plows can bust them up. So you might be replacing these every 5 years or so instead of every 15 years, like you might do in somewhere like Florida. So that's an issue. That said, I'm not sure how many times a year we plow our local streets, but it's when we get those big snowfalls. It's not every single snow. Another concern that we've heard is that they can be loud. Some people say yes, some people say no. But if people are trying to fly over those things, they can make a loud noise. If you live right there, you might hear that more often. What else? Some police officers, Ferndale specifically, said that their police doesn't really think they work very well. That they're a feel-good measure, but people are still speeding and they didn't solve the problem. And other people don't like them because they just don't want them in their way. Even though it's their street to slow down, they just don't like having to deal with them. So those are the top ones that come to mind. And I know in the past, that's kind of why we said we're not doing these. But they really are becoming much more prevalent throughout Michigan. I mean, Detroit has a huge program where they're installing them, perhaps too much everywhere. But they are definitely, coming out of the woodwork.
And we have a different public works director now, so there's that.
That's true.
Well, you mentioned chicanes, and I've read a little bit about them. You say that one of their disadvantages is they take parking off the street. Are there other merits, though, that might encourage you to consider them?
I mean, they kind of do the same thing everything else does, right? They force you to drive kind of in a different way, so they make you pause and slow down a little bit to figure out what's going on the road. We haven't done chicanes because it's really tricky unless you want to redesign the whole road and reinstall all the drainage, because right now everything drains right down the gutter line. So as you start moving a road like this, you have to do a lot more improvement. And if I was reconstructing a whole road, I could do that, but to just kind of put them in spots, it's really tricky to do. So that's why we haven't done them yet.
Yeah, I've seen some examples though where they were done with paint and posts. That might be something to experiment with in the future.
Yeah, that's a possibility for sure. We've always kind of looked at doing it with curbs,
right,
and maybe like leaving a gap at the gutter for the flow line, but then snow plowing becomes a big question, and you've got ice blocks when you have that. But that's a possibility for sure.
So, and then another completely rhetorical question is, once we put those speed humps there, will Google Maps and Waze know about this added inconvenience and stop sending vehicles down that alternate route? Not looking for an answer there again, just a rhetorical question. Thank you.
Commissioner Macy.
So I think they will know because traffic will move more slowly there, and that's they're collecting that data all the time. So they'll be like, apparently it's much slower to get through here now. So the question I have is about speed hump itself. So we have the ones in Merrill Avenue. You said it's not like that. I thought we had one on Gardenia. It says it's a speed hump. Yep. It's a real big one.
Yeah, so that's technically called. Yeah, that's a speed table. It's just the words that they use in the industry, right? But
well,
so you raise the entire intersection.
And then I'm also familiar with speed bumps, which are the things that people, the smaller ones. Where do the things we're talking about fit in this category? Like, do they look like the ones in Merrill, except they're concrete instead of? Okay.
Correct. Yeah, they're I believe 10 to 14 feet long, and they're usually almost the full width of the road. You just leave it open at the gutter again, so that stormwater can flow. And they go up about 3 to 4 inches. So the idea is you're supposed to be able to drive over them at the speed limit. You're not supposed to slow down to 10 miles per hour to get over them. And that's the difference between a speed hump and a speed bump. Speed bumps are for parking lots, and they're usually 6 inches or higher.
Okay, so that was my next question. Will there be a sign that says speed hump, but it won't say slow down because you should already be going the speed that is acceptable to drive over it on?
Right, yeah. Recommended practice is to put a speed hump sign in. Ferndale actually advised us, if we move forward, put that sign in first so people get used to it before you even put the speed hump in, which seemed a little weird to me, but that they said that was a lesson that they learned. So,
okay, that's all.
Mr. Perush.
I just have a question about the snow plowing. It probably is helpful that Erin is here as well. I know a long time opposition to these was it's just going to wreck the plows. It's just going to just rip up those plow blades. So is it the design that is better now, or is it the plow drivers are more, what happens with the plowing?
It's not so much that it damages the plow equipment, but more than it just damages the street and results in damages to the road prematurely, potentially. When we are on a roll and we have a heavy snow and we're moving snow with our snow plows, we do need to keep moving at a decent clip when we're going there. Otherwise, we sort of lose the snow under the truck. So they can be a hindrance for us in those circumstances. It's nothing we can't overcome, but in our discussions, it's worthy of bringing up that if these things were to become more ubiquitous, it really would become a problem. And so finding carefully selected locations, it's not a huge deal. The one we have installed on Merrill is quite low. Our experience from our drivers is that it hasn't really caused too much of an issue, but that's the plastic rubber type that personally I think stand out. They don't look very nice in the road, in my view. But yeah, it's not. These things do exist elsewhere. It's not. It will not make our plowing operations impossible, but it can with these if they end up widespread throughout the city. I think we would be in a different situation, and we'd have to rework that.
Okay, because when there's a lot, especially when there's a lot of heavy snow, I mean, those trucks fly down the side streets because there is so much snow, and you need that speed momentum in order to be able to clear the street. And I can just hear them hitting a speed bump. So your thought is this, if they're not that prevalent, then they can work around it. But if we were to have too many of them, it would cause a big problem.
Yeah, that would be my concern, is that whatever kind of requirements we put in for even applying for these, that they'd be strict enough that they wouldn't result in these things springing up every which place. So,
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Hunt?
So, Ms. Donahue, if the ones on Merrill took an entire day to put down, just one speed hump, what is the timeline for these cement or asphalt ones? And is it that they can be repaired in the event there is a snow plow that goes over it and easily repaired, I should say?
They can be, especially if they're asphalt, which is probably more likely what we'll use on streets. They can be patched for a while. Over time, they'll continue to crumble, and we'll have to actually replace them in full. Asphalt, it's a pretty quick operation as well. So you can do probably, if like we had a program and we hired a contractor, we would do many of them in a day. It just depends how these work out. If I just have 2 to do for the whole year, or I'm hiring somebody to do a bunch of them. But I think we would be fine with asphalt. Concrete's a little tricky because it just takes so long to cure. You have to wait 5 days before you can drive on it. So I think we would only do concrete ones if we were already doing concrete work on that street for some other reason, to handle it that way. Does that answer your question?
It did.
Okay.
And speaking with Ferndale, did they indicate how their emergency vehicles are dealing with these? Are they finding alternative routes, or is it slowing them down in getting to either patients or emergency situations?
They didn't mention that it was any issue. I didn't specifically ask them either, though, but they did give me a lot of feedback, and I'll note that wasn't one of the items.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Macy?
Sorry, one more question. So would these be popular, do you think? I mean, so I guess I tend to think that people don't like these, and yet we had everybody out tonight is like, yes, please put these right in front of my house because it's crazy out there. So does Mr. Filipski have something to worry about? Like if it comes out like, oh, Royal Oak is now installing these speed humps, are we going to have requests from as many people as we see requests to consider other traffic calming measures at a traffic committee, which is a lot?
That's a really hard question to answer. Tonight's a really bad example because I have quite a few that met these standards to move forward, but they met them by quite a bit, actually. I think what might delay things is getting your neighbors to agree to sign a petition. I mean, to me, 65%, it's hard to even reach 65% of your neighbors, let alone get them to agree to it, especially if they have to pay for it, too. So that makes me think more will not pass just for that reason alone. I would say we get speeding requests like all the time, and I would say it's about 50-50. People think there's a problem, and it's not. The data shows that there's not a speeding issue. The other 50% of the time, yeah, people are going 28 miles per hour or higher. We could set the bar higher if we were seeing these show up too much. We could say, let's say 30 miles per hour. It's got to be a really big problem on that street before we want to do speed humps. That's another option.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes, me again. Back to the 65% and payment issue. So 65%, the proposal, 65% of residents must petition for the installation and agree to pay. So the idea is that if you've said you want speed humps, will you know how much it's going to cost before you say so?
Yes, so somebody would request the petition from us. We would first do a traffic study to say, do you have speeding? Do you have the right volume of traffic? If the answer is yes, next step is create a petition, come up with a cost, come up with a diagram, and let them circulate that. So I did a very, very rough one for Buckingham, which is one of the options tonight. And I think it worked out to be like $300-ish per resident. So, not a huge cost, but a decent cost that maybe not everyone wants to pay.
So, for example, the Buckingham item that we have in front of us will only go forward if you meet that 65% criteria.
That's what we're recommending, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, question about, well-intended, ambitions, and what would it be to remove these if they were put in? Because I do see a circumstance where everybody is rightfully impatient about, speeders and just people not being good humans and, flying down the street, and you put these in and then there's some unintended consequences and then everyone wants them to remove. One, is that expensive to do if the neighbors come back and say, I want them out? And two, does it compromise the integrity of the street? Like you put it in, it's great, but then when you take it out, now we got to rework the street. In your opinion, is it something that easy in, easy out, or is it easy in, very difficult to get out? Only because I know sometimes it may not solve the issue, or people see other problems with it, and they may want them. They may come back 75% and say remove them.
Right, and that brings up a good point. Is what is that process then? Do they petition to remove them? Is it a standard traffic committee item? We might have to add to our policy in the future as we get there. In terms of removal, I think it's relatively easy in, more difficult to get it out. We probably just cut on both sides of the road, take all the pavement out and just re-pour it, or new asphalt. If it's an asphalt street, it's a little easier. You just have to mill it all off and cap it with asphalt. Concrete streets, it's a whole different animal. So.
Okay. But it's not insurmountable where you have a major...
It's like any other, like we do road patching all the time, okay. So it's not really a big deal to do.
Hole and then create the hole on purpose and then fill it.
Right.
Okay. I think those are the questions that I think it's good to have a policy or at least something that folks can chew on to say, there's got to be some science and there's got to be some, at least, a majority sentiment by those most impacted by it, what the right issue is. No prescription comes without a few side effects. I mean, that's absolutely the case in almost everything we do. So, I think for the most part you captured most. I think the 65% is a tall order, and I think that the 100% I see being, interesting, because if you might have 95% of the folks saying, I want this on our street, and then the 5% of the people that don't are right there by the hump, so you could have some of those unique situations. But I think what it does is it says, puts the onus on the residents to say, hey, you have to, if you really, really want this, and it's really attacking a significant issue, and it is the right solution, the right prescription, then we move forward. Not a guesswork, not a let's try it. It raises the bar to say that this is something that will be effective, and we understand the downsides along with the upsides. So I like it.
So if I can ask a question of the commission, are you okay? Would you like to do special assessment districts for these requests? Or if, right now we have a road millage, which is a pretty good funding source for something like this, but we won't always have a road millage. So that's really what we're looking for direction for on specifically.
Mr. Macy?
Can we write it like we do for the streets, where while this road millage is in place, the city will cover half the cost and special assess the other half?
That's an option.
Would you prefer no special assessment just because it's complicated?
I think the dollars we'll spend in staff time preparing a special assessment district will pay for the speed humps.
That is important information to have. I think we should not have a special assessment.
Do you want to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to, let's see, what am I doing? Am I approving this whole thing, but editing that? I'd like to make a motion to approve the first resolution and take out the part about agreeing to pay for the installation cost.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Mason, second by Commissioner Perush. Discussion? I'll just ask that question, Ms. Donahue. Since it's only, when I look at the circumstances here, it's more work for us to do a special assessment than it is just to install them. That's what I understand.
Right.
So it's a fiscally better decision to not have the residents pay for them. Yeah. I think that makes sense in this case. And it's such a tall order. And, we already design our roads, and we're becoming more progressive at it as we speak every day to mitigate dangerous situations in our streets and to make them more pedestrian friendly. And we would do that if we were redesigning a road to make it safer. We would be absorbing that cost as well as a city. So this is no different, even though it is a little bit of a retrofit. So I'm good with that. All right. Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
Okay, I'll move on now.
Okay, now that we have the base.
Thank you for that. So our next item is 6B. This is a request to evaluate speeding and truck traffic on Buckingham Road between Greenfield and Woodward. The data that we collected showed the 85th percentile speed is at 32 miles per hour, and there's about 800 vehicles per day on the road. The data also showed that about 3/4 of the traffic is heading eastbound, and that's also where we saw significantly higher speeding, and the commercial traffic was way up there as well. So therefore, we're recommending a no truck sign be installed on Greenfield Road at Buckingham to prevent eastbound cut-through truck traffic. And then because the speed hump policy is approved, we would also then move forward with a petition for the neighborhood to move forward with speed humps as a petition. And if they get that signed, we'll bring it back for final approval in the future. The next item is 6D, another speeding request. This is on Oliver Road between Webster and Crooks. Here, the speeds again were pretty high at 29 miles per hour and 32 miles per hour, with 800 to 900 vehicles per day. Again, the speed hump policy was approved, so at this point, we're just going to be creating a petition for them to circulate and bring back at a future meeting. So relatively simple one at this point. 6E is for Benjamin Avenue, just north of Woodward. We had studied this road back in 2019 with the traffic committee and determined at that time that there was a speeding issue, And the traffic committee had recommended that we install traffic calming the next time we improve the road, and that happens to be coming up in 2023. So this fall we started working on designs, came up with some kind of crazy options, and started to realize we probably should get some neighborhood feedback before we just, march forward with some traffic calming that they might really be opposed to. So we came up with two options. One was the more traditional traffic calming that we've done throughout the city, shown here as option A. So there's a traffic calming island in the middle. There's a bump out here at a crosswalk to help slow down traffic. So it's almost like a chicane, like you go outside then inside. We originally, for both of these options, also had a calming island near Woodward, but got some feedback from one of the businesses that said, I think my trucks are not going to make that turn, and that business was right. That is definitely not going to work. So we took that out of the options for both options, and that's why you see some crossed out costs and some updates on this exhibit here. City staff, when we met, was slightly more in favor of doing option A, only because the fire department makes quite a few calls to the apartments that are here on the east side of Benjamin, and so they were a little bit worried about having to make ambulance runs over a speed hump. We talked about the speed island. Resident feedback, however, at the meeting, we had quite a few people show up for this one, and we also received quite a few emails. Looks to have strong favor for the speed hump option and strong opposition for the calming islands. So the traffic committee is recommending that we move forward with just a petition like the past two items with some speed hump locations, and then we do have a person in the neighborhood who's willing to circulate that. So this would just be from Woodward to Carmen at this point. Next we had a request on Roseland Avenue. This is between Northwood and Maplewood, another speeding concern. Here the 85th percentile speed was measured at 24 miles per hour, and the average daily traffic was 580 vehicles per day. That's pretty reasonable for a residential street, and so no changes were recommended for this one. 6H is another head scratcher for tonight. We had a request here to evaluate the left turns that you can make from East 4th Street onto Campbell Road. So currently drivers can turn left and head north, or turn left and turn south onto Campbell Road, and there is a red light immediately upon turning left, so you should be turning left and stopping right away. But based on the accident history that we pulled here, and also we had a consultant do a field visit during the peak hours, drivers seem to be ignoring this red light fairly regularly and just either driving through the intersection illegally or not realizing what they're doing and potentially opening themselves up to a crash. And so the original complaint here was, somebody was concerned that vehicles were just stacking. Too many people were trying to get into this turn lane, and it was causing congestion in the intersection. We really kind of flipped it on its head and said, this is really more of a safety issue. We don't want people running this red light and opening themselves up to harm here. So we came up with three options that we presented to the traffic committee, and I'll just say up front, none of them are great options here. But I'll kind of go through our thinking on these, and then after the meeting, we kind of came up with a fourth option. I'm giving it all away, so here we go. First option is to allow drivers to proceed north or south, basically give them a blinking red light. So make your left turn and have a sign that says when traffic clears, proceed through. The traffic consultant that we used strongly recommended against this option. There's already an accident history here. They think it will probably lead to more accidents, and just based on the location of where those traffic signals are physically located, I think it can be really confusing to drivers, especially on those who are sitting at the Campbell Road red light. They might think that blinking red is for them, and they might try and skip across 4th Street as well. Another option is to just retime the signal altogether so that you have 3 phases, one for Campbell Road, one for westbound 4th where they get to proceed through and get a green light the whole way and keep going, and then one for eastbound 4th Street to do the same thing. However, to do that, we would have to rob a ton of time from Campbell Road, which is already pretty congested in the evenings. Considering the volume of traffic on 4th Street, it just really doesn't make sense to do something like that. We would benefit a few at the cost of many. The third option which is what staff had come with the recommendation to do, was to prohibit left turns from 4th Street at the intersection altogether, and instead require drivers to use the median turnarounds at the next street. So go past the light, turn around, and make a right-hand turn, which you can do on red there. The traffic committee, and I think rightly so, was really concerned that that's going to lead to a lot of cut-through traffic in these neighborhoods. Either, people, they don't think, and I kind of agree, people aren't going to make this turnaround and go wait at a light again. They're just going to keep going straight to get to wherever they need to go. So that could create a new problem in the neighborhood. So after a lot of discussion, the committee recommended placing the flashing red signal, and I'll kind of have another diagram here to help explain this. So basically make these far signals blinking reds and keep these other ones solid red for Campbell traffic. Again, I was a little concerned with this at the table, and then when I actually went to kind of lay out what I would ask DPS to do for us here, realized that even when you go to pull up for northbound Campbell, you might think this red light is for you, even if you've just made that left-hand turn. I just think it's a really confusing option and probably going to lead to more crashes. That's my opinion, though. It's not the traffic committee's recommendation. I brought this back to our consultant after the meeting and after getting a lot of feedback. They said, one really simple option we could look at doing here is just give them add a sign there that reinforces you're supposed to stop here on red. Put a stop here on red sign at the stop bar for both directions, just so people don't drive through that red light unknowingly. It's more of a simple option, but maybe that's what's best here. I did at least call the chair today and ask him if he was okay with me bringing that recommendation up, or if he thought we needed to bring it back to the traffic committee. He was okay. He thought that was a prudent option as well. So that's kind of my modified recommendation for this one, which is not what the resolution in front of you says. I gave you the resolution as recommended by the traffic committee. So we can talk about this if you want at the end. And then I have one final item here. This is for Ingram siding on East 4th Street. This is a loading zone request on the north side of 4th in front of the business, which is between Phillips and Kaiser. The business here is not able to unload semi-truck deliveries from their parking areas on either side of the business. And so they really need to use 4th Street for deliveries and often end up blocking the bike lanes and part of the travel lane if cars are already parked within the parking lane of 4th Street. And so the traffic committee is recommending allowing a loading zone here only during daytime hours from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and kind of centering it as shown in the image here by the garage doors of the business, and still allowing for 2 parking spots at the west end and at the east end, which that's what the blue zones on the image are showing there. And then during the evening hours, it all opens up for parking after 3 p.m. That is all of them.
Just a quick question. Does this business operate Monday through Friday, or does it operate on weekends also? And if it's only Monday through Friday, could we make the sign say no parking 7 to 3 Monday through Friday?
I'm not sure, honestly, if they are open on Saturday or not. Oh, he's still here.
How about we could find out?
Yeah.
I'm right here. We're open, presently, on winter hours, we're only open from 8 until 4:30, Monday through Friday. During the spring, summer, and early fall, we're open 7:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, 8 until noon on Saturday.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Do you get deliveries on Saturday?
No, we do not.
Thank you.
That's my question. So back to Campbell. We can jump around, right?
Jump around.
All right. So I drive this all the time. I can see the attraction of the flashing red light, but I agree that I think it's a terrible idea because people already are confused, and I don't think it would help. I think it's just going to confuse the people who are on Campbell, regular Campbell. I liked the idea of making them do a Michigan left. And I'm just wondering, so your concern is that when people do go to that next street and do a Michigan left, they're just going to keep going on that street?
Not necessarily that, or it depends where you're trying to get to, right? But if you're trying to get to 75, you might say, well, I'm not going to do this light at all. I'm going to cut through all the other streets to the west of here. And, there's a ton of streets you can use as an option to get from 4th to 11 Mile. But maybe you're trying to go south. I don't know if people are going to go past the light and cut through, or if they're going to do it before they even get to the light.
Going on 4th, I'm going to turn left on Campbell. And where else would I be? Oh, you're saying, I see what you're saying about going to 75.
Yeah, so 75, that ramp is no longer going to exist from 4th Street.
From 4th Street,
Everyone
right.
has to go to 11 Mile now. I don't know if that might in itself increase traffic through the neighborhood, but it's probably generated by the neighborhood as well.
I hate to add concrete, but could we make a little, there already is that if you want to turn around on 4th Street right at the edge of the corner there, if you're on 4th Street, you can turn around right there before you get to Campbell. But could we make it such that you could do your Michigan left more easily before you get to the next street, so that people, like a real Michigan left where you go through and then you turn right around?
You could. You'd have to probably cut down some trees to do that.
It's always the trees.
Just considering how close the next turnaround is, to me it seems like, why would we do that?
But I would think too, I live in that neighborhood, and I don't even turn left there. It never made sense to me to turn
Right.
left there because I'd have to, wait the light out.
Yeah.
So when I have to go to 11 or whatever, I go down my street to 11. I think it's interesting when people turn there left. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because obviously if you're turning left there, your next destination is 11 or north, because you're getting onto Campbell. It's an interesting intersection, but people do it clearly, and I get the flashing red light. Like, that would be confusing. Like, what's going on? Is it for me? Is it for them? The people that aren't forced to turn around there. My navigation actually weirdly takes me through. It won't take me down this route. It will actually take me through, like a Michigan left through one of the neighborhood streets. So it's interesting, what the Google and Waze and all those guys do. But
it's a very long light for 4th Street.
Yeah.
Like, we give as much time as we can to Campbell there, so you wait probably, I think it's 90 seconds or so.
Yeah.
I could see anyone that knows that area, they know probably not to turn left there.
Yeah, exactly. You go
Right.
through, you find a different route. Do you, the sign, if we were to put the sign up, I don't want to say that's free, but that's, we'd be able to measure and monitor to see if we have if that actually improves the situation, right?
We could pull the crash history a year after, for example, and see, is this still kind of regularly occurring? I think we had 4 crashes in a 3-year period, specifically that type of crash, running a red light and T-boning with somebody. I don't know if a year of data will tell us enough if we made an impact or not, but it's something we could monitor into the future.
But I'll also tell you too, like, turning left there, the times that I have, it's such a small, like, you're not even looking up and everything, and a lot of people, because it still has that neighborhood feel, even though it's 4th and Campbell, like, people think it's a 4-way stop and go through anyways, and aren't really, I can see how it's not intentional, but I think a sign would be, an opportunity to see if that fixes it, as opposed to borrowing more trouble. Commissioner Poosh?
I'm like Commissioner Macy. I like the Michigan left option. And if it ends up, spilling traffic into the neighborhoods, we're going to hear about that pretty quickly. And I think at that point, then we can kind of readjust and reevaluate our options. But I think I'd like to try that option, because to me it seems the least dangerous of the options that we've got. The blinking lights scares me. Option. I don't think that's an option at all.
Is that option also just signage? You're basically saying no left turn, and then so we're not having to reconstruct anything. It's signage as well to do the Michigan left approach.
It's just a little costlier. We would do you can see in the image here, like these illuminated case signs on the mast arm to be consistent. So, it's more than $300, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge deal. It may take a little bit of time to get those ordered and installed, though.
Okay. Commissioner Macy?
Oh, sorry.
No.
Can I make that motion? I'm gonna make that motion that for 6H, that we,
Sure.
Do we want to do them all?
do I? Oh, that's a lot of thinking. Okay.
I don't object.
So because I approve 6B, there's no 6C, 6D, 6E, 6F. And then for 6H, that we change it to be the flashing no left turn. That's my motion. I'm sticking with it.
No flashing, just no left turn, right?
Oh, sorry, I think you said flashing.
And I
My
would,
mistake.
and the parking zone?
I wondered if Commissioner Douglas had something to say about that, so I was going to leave that one.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion on the table, does it include 6I?
It does not.
It does not include 6I, okay. So everything that we discussed up to H with the modification on H to do the no left turn.
Right.
Got it, okay. Commissioner Hunt.
I did have a
Oh, wait, sorry.
question.
The motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a second?
Yes.
Second by Commissioner
Sorry.
Pruitt. Okay. Commissioner Hunt.
Yes, I did have a question about 6E, the Benjamin calming options. You indicated that this is going to stop at Carmen, so there wouldn't be any speed bumps or humps or any calming measures after Carmen. And I know that there was some concern about that stop sign being run on Carmen. Is there any thought that after Carmen there could be some speed humps that would slow people down to stop them at that stop sign?
Yeah, I don't know that it will force people to stop at a stop sign, but it will help with speeding issues. The reason we restricted this one only to Carmen is that was where we had speed data. So I can say,
Okay.
yep, that met the criteria. I suspect from Carmen to Webster, we'll find the same type of thing, but I told the neighborhood at then, because we had a few people at the meeting request that. I said, give me your request after we get this criteria approved, and we'll do the same process. We'll run a speed study and make sure that that meets the criteria as well.
When I first saw this, my concern was after Webster to 13 Mile, because people speed through trying to make that light before getting it. So there was no data done for
No data,
that
and
area.
that one, I know I'm probably going to hear about that one too, and that one is like a priority street for snow plowing because it's a route to school, so that'll be a tricky one to approve or not approve, but.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Discussion? I'll just say, I think, if it's just signage, again, a little bit more pricey signage, we'll see. And I agree with Commissioner Pruitt. She convinced me. If there is a neighborhood outcry, we'll hear about it. I suspect most people that are using that intersection are from the neighborhood and already have their preferred routes anyways. And I think the hypothesis might be pretty accurate that we won't see much change. So it's just signage, so we can move it back if we're wrong. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, that brings us to 6I. Commissioner Douglas?
Yes, so I would like to move approval of the resolution for, it's interesting, if you look at the agenda, the minutes of the meeting, the item title says request to install no parking 7 to 3 Monday through Friday, but the text of the committee's motion does not mention the Monday through Friday. I nevertheless am going to add it back in and say that we approve the resolution regarding the parking on East 4th Street in that block to say no parking 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. loading zone Monday through Friday.
Got it. Okay, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion. All right, with that. Oh, sorry. You're slowing me
Well,
down.
I was sorry, because I just wondered if Ms. Donahue, was it intentionally removed, or was it just?
Nope, she called me out. I just missed it.
So it was your intention to have
I can admit when I'm wrong.
But it wasn't like a purpose.
No, I just missed it.
Okay.
All right. Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
We'll allow it this time.
I tell ya, goodness gracious. Okay. So this brings us to, I think we're done with 10, right? That was all the recommendations.
Yes.
Some of them got pushed.
Yes, we
All
are.
right.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue.
So we still get her, we still have the blessing of her presence.
All right.
For item 11, which is the standard resolution 2 special assessment for paving of Fairgrove Avenue. We did get some correspondence from you earlier.
Yeah, so I'll briefly kind of summarize where we're at with this. So at our last meeting, we approved standard resolution 1 for a 27-foot wide road for the full length of Fairgrove, which included removal of some very mature trees. At that time, the commission wanted to just move forward with it to see what other options we could consider. And so I did bring you standard resolution 2 because that was my directive. But I'm recommending that we basically take no action on that tonight because we've created some new petition options for the petitioner. We've already received a signed petition back. My understanding is, at least the people who had to sign it were obviously in favor, and I haven't heard anything negative from the neighbors to the north that would be a problem. So my plan was to bring a new standard resolution 1 in January, still notify the entire street of what's going on. So if they want to speak out, they still have the option to do that, and they're informed, but they would not be part of that assessment district, the two properties on the north end.
Okay. So you're asking us to take no action or to not move forward with?
I mean, I suppose you could deny it, but
if we took no action, would that be the same? Would that allow us to get the new petition in January?
If you take no action, then under Robert's Rules of Order, it's treated as tabling on the item, which at the end of the meeting would result in a denial. If you're wanting to take no action and delay, if you want to delay taking action until some future date or event certain, you can do that, and this item will still be live until that day comes.
So we could just delay until we get the new petition and see the success of that, and it sounds like it's going to be positive. Sounds like everybody's come to terms, and we're going to save the trees, and so if we don't take any action on it, we'll get something in January for the south side paving. Okay.
There'll still be a motion to postpone. Oh.
Sorry. He didn't say no action. He said we had to take a motion to postpone this until... Sorry, Ms. Donahue. When did you say the other one was coming?
Until we get the other petition in?
Until we get something else.
Be an event certain.
Yeah, it has to be an event certain, right? I don't think...
The event certain would be the receipt and presentation of the new petition.
Seems like an event uncertain. Okay, so that's my motion.
Motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion?
Got that, no?
All right, no discussion. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion to do nothing to postpone is passed. So just as a quick summary, we're just going to wait till we see that second petition. Makes sense. Why would we take action on this if it seems like there's another solution out there that everybody's cool with? So we'll just wait till January and target January, and we'll go from there. Lots of signatures to get, right? Just 2?
You can get one of them right now.
And you know what? I think this is one of the stories that I think we can tell, hopefully in January, where you got a group of neighbors that had different ways of looking at things, came together, worked with the city engineer, and looks like they're hopefully portends a positive outcome for what I see right now. So nice work on everyone's part. So
yes.
All right.
Mike, can I say something real quick?
Oh, yes, you can say something.
Before she leaves, what you just said made me think, thank you, Ms. Donahue, for also saying that you were going to let the other neighbors know, like that, like going above and beyond to make sure that this community is informed and working together. I really appreciate that.
All right. Okay. That brings us to item 12, which is the authorization to submit Spark grant and approval of matching funds. See, Aaron is here in position.
Good evening, Mayor Fournier and City Commissioners. The item before you, as you noted, is seeking approval for a grant application that the Department of Public Services and Recreation and the City Manager's Office has been working on through the MDNR Spark Grant Program. What we're proposing is our improvements at Elks Park, and the resolution today also has a request that the City Commission also pledges a match. A match is not required for this grant, but we feel like that would help us get the amenity improvements that we're looking for, and also improve our chances of being approved for the grant. So we're asking for $1 million from MDNR and requesting that we would pledge $400,000 towards that end. At Elks Park, as you know, there's existing volleyball courts, basketball courts, tennis courts, and a baseball field. We'd like to keep all of those amenities, but they're pretty dilapidated, so this project would involve improving those, along with replacement of the existing play structures that are there. Part of the grant wants that we can provide new opportunities for recreation. We currently do not have an inline hockey rink, so part of the concept of this would be to install that, along with a perimeter walking path. Currently, there's no sidewalks on, I want to say at least on the east side of the park, so that would improve accessibility there. And this was brought to the Parks and Rec and Senior Services Advisory Board for their input on this. They gave it their endorsement with the caveat that we consider a skate park. I know that's a big topic. It's a potential location. I think budget might rein that in a little bit, as well as space, but that's something that we'll definitely look at when we design it. A couple of issues that were brought up during public comment. Elks Park is not CDBG eligible. That is why we're kind of seeking, that was a good candidate for this. And somebody else had mentioned that they were concerned that somehow Elks Park would just become Normandy Oaks, and that's not part of this plan. Just to be clear on that, it will remain Elks Park. The grant schedule says that we should know something by January of 2023, so we keep our fingers crossed, and if we're approved, we begin the planning and design process shortly thereafter. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Mr. Filipski? Mr. Douglas.
Mr. Filipski, how does, I will say that the amenities that you're looking to improve here feel a little kitchen sinkish. I know that that park has a lot of stuff in it, but you just completed or are about to complete a Parks and Rec master plan. Does that master plan envision this park to look like this, or have all of this in it?
Not specifically that all in one place, but some of the amenities for sure. So no, the plan doesn't call out like specifically to add those there. I mean, we're really, the only thing we would be adding would be a skate facility or the hockey rink, the inline hockey rink. By our view of it, there is space there for it. Is that sort of your question?
Well, I just sort of you've got a bunch of amenities in this park. Are they duplicative? Do your plan? I mean, will there be other parks nearby that have any of these features? So we haven't seen a design here. Let me ask this, when you get around to the design process, how will you engage the community in deciding what goes into this park?
Well, that will definitely be discussed at the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. And we could do communications with the neighbors. That wasn't something we considered, but that we could, to let them know that we would be having a discussion on it at the Parks and Rec Board meeting and get their input on that. But it would go, any final design review would go to that board as well as here.
Well, and I'm just saying that rather than going to that board with a final design, allow them to have input in the design and give guidance. I mean, if Commissioner Macy can jump in here at any point, but I mean, if they want to hear more from the public or look at the results of the master plan research and see what drives what we put in this park. I will say inline hockey, I have never heard that concept ever before in 9 years on the commission. Is that a thing?
Oh, yeah.
It is.
It is?
Yeah, Ferndale has one. Berkeley has one. It's
Okay.
very popular.
Okay, can people go to Ferndale or Berkeley to experience this?
I guess they could play tennis and do a whole bunch of other things in Berkeley too.
Yeah, I'm ascertaining if there's that high a level of demand for inline. What is inline hockey?
Essentially rollerblade hockey with tennis balls or some other sort of puck, but no ice involved. You just do it on a concrete court.
All right. Anyway, I just want to make sure that this is community driven. And what was my other question? Will the walking path connect with Normandy Oaks?
That's the idea.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'll just say to that point, I agree, but also too, a lot of this budget here, a lot of it's reconstruction of what we have there already today. Like the ball field does need to be rehabbed a lot. The tennis courts are pretty bad. The sand volleyball court is kind of there.
I think if it were new, people, fixed up,
people would use
that.
it for sure. There's that kickball league. There is definitely room for sand volleyball. But if your stuff looks awful, then people aren't going to use it. And then the resurfacing of the basketball court. So I think that a big driving of this is kind of taking to what we have right now and making it much better. The inline potential skate park and then the new play equipment will be interesting to see from a design point of view, that we're not just pulling out of a catalog and doing something, that we're getting community engagement and making it look cool. Commissioner Macy.
Yeah, so I agree with Commissioner Douglas. I think that the most successful parks we have are ones where, rather than bringing a final design to the community and to the Parks and Rec Board, it's where we have input from those bodies we have input from the community up front. Like, so we heard today from, Pat McGee, he was here and said that he's excited about this redoing, but I mean, I'm sure if we asked Pat, he would have a lot of things to say about ways that this park could be improved. And so it does feel like if we want this to be the most successful it can be, and it's going to be it's expensive. This is a lot of money we're spending on this park if we get this grant. I really would love to see some sort of community engagement and bringing something in front of the board that was not a final plan, but allowed there to be some input before that. And I said the same thing that Commissioner Douglas said about, maybe I didn't say it, maybe someone else said it, at the Parks and Rec meeting about the inline hockey, like, oh, that sounds cool, but we have people come to us all the time asking for some things, and literally no one in my memory has asked for inline hockey. So we have people asking for the skate park, for example, so that's, I think, probably why Joe brought that up, and we have a lot of people who are actually, there's a whole group. And so yes, I think inline hockey would be great, and the fact that we don't have one, it would be awesome to put that in one of our parks. But are we being thoughtful about this, given the fact that we just went through this process and gathered community input, and now we're just setting that aside and saying, okay, we're going to redo all the things in this park, and this is what you're going to get, and you're going to like it. I mean, that wasn't really the point of the plan process, and I'm hoping that we can do a better job of incorporating the feedback that we received already and soliciting more on the specific parks that we're going to be putting our time and energy into. Yeah, I see we have the chair of the board here today who's here to listen in on these. I'm sure she has some opinions as well.
Commissioner Perush?
Okay, it's my understanding that this grant program, was made available because of legislation that was passed in Lansing, building something better in March of this year. And then when it was announced that these funds were going to DNR, and this was a pocket of money that DNR could use for these types of programs, that was announced this fall, I believe. And I believe there is a very short deadline. The deadline, I think, is in December, sometime in December, like it might be this week.
It is.
It's a week from today. Yeah. So everyone who is going to be applying for these grants, including us, has had this really condensed time frame to get anything put together to apply for a grant. So I agree, we need a lot of public input as to how this money is eventually spent. But we have not had time to do that because the deadline for getting this grant in is this week. Right. So, and it's only been up and running for the past maybe 8 weeks or so. So everybody's rushing, including we've been rushing to get this out there. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for taking this to the public if we do get the grant and just saying, okay, here's some ideas. What do you think? Let's work on a community development plan for this park. But we've got to get that into Lansing like in 4 days. So, we can do the public input, but we really need this to get this out the door.
Yeah, that's why we have the preliminary, we put this together. There are some pieces that could change once we get to that design phase, but that was our concern, making sure that we got this in and we didn't leave that money sitting on the table potentially.
Yeah.
And do you think that discussing a public engagement process in the application would be helpful? Or would it be like, oh, these people don't, because we could give testament to Centennial Commons, Normandy Oaks, and how successful we've been as a community. Given the compressed time, does it increase our chances of being awarded, or do they want to know, nope, this is exactly what you're going to do?
No, that definitely increases our chance of being awarded. I know in the application we did indicate that we would be bringing it here to have some kind of a public discussion about it. And I can't speak to it, but I'm pretty sure, and I'll double check based on this conversation, that Julie in the manager's office, when we're setting this up, that maybe she can include that as any part of the narrative, that there would be additional community engagement.
To ensure whatever is done successfully and implemented to the really get the highest and best use out of these dollars, because the people that are most impacted by it have an important say. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you need a resolution from us.
Yes.
To make sure that the grant providers know we're serious.
Yep.
Well, and to pledge our
support
match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to pledge our match as well.
Spend the money.
Yeah. Mr. Perush?
I'll move approval of the resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Perush, second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Filipski. All right. See Mr. Twing down there. Are we all ready at item 13? Planning Commission recommendation for zoning ordinance text amendments for establishments serving alcoholic beverages, first reading.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Commission. What you do have in front of you is a text amendment to the zoning ordinance that was indicated that dealing with establishments that either want to have or do have liquor license or are requesting that. The way the current text of the ordinance is set up, they are treated as a special land use, requiring special land use permit approval and site plan approval in front of the Planning Commission for the districts they're in. So they might be listed in general business, neighborhood business, or so on, but they're all treated as requiring a special land use approval in front of the Planning Commission, and that's where that ends. You may also recall that the city does have a licensing ordinance that requires the submission of a plan of operation that generally goes through the police department and then is brought to the city commission in order for that actual license to be issued to the party. The primary focus of changing this ordinance is there's also a provision in the zoning ordinance that prohibits the planning commission from taking any action until the city commission has issued that license. So what that does is prolong the process, and it doesn't let the planning commission process start until that process is over. So it prolongs it for what, from a staff standpoint, we believe if you agree with these revisions, we can kind of run it concurrently with the special land use decisions being made at this body, just like you would be making the decision on the licensing. It would be done at this body. The provision that was stuck in many years ago in the zoning ordinance prohibit from the planning commission from action was the criteria is very similar under a special land use or under the liquor license ordinance for the basis for issuing those. So I believe the attorneys at the time didn't want the planning commission saying, yep, this site's good for it, and this city commission going, no, it's not. So it precluded the planning commission from proceeding, but what it has done is, somebody may be going through the police department for a few months trying to get their license, and then they have, once you've acted, then they can actually start on the site planning commission action and basically go back and go through another process there. On occasions, they may also could be already an existing restaurant and they want to come in and apply for renovations in the building department, but they want to put in services, beer taps, or do things, and they want to apply for a license, and they've already done all their construction drawings. We will not let them proceed for building permits until you've acted on, again, the license, because it's a zoning issue that precludes it. So the whole basis of this revisions are to eliminate that stop in the process. And the way that is done is the action would be shifted from the Planning Commission to the City Commission as far as the special land use approvals. It would still go through the Planning Commission for a recommendation. We're not cutting them out of the review process. It's very much what occurred with the marijuana licensing activity. It's also something that we do with the terms restricted accessory parking lots. It's basically a parking lot that's associated with a business that might be in a one-family zone. There are a few of them along Woodward. Those decisions, again, are done here, final decisions. So there are other types of special land uses that go through the Planning Commission with a recommendation to the City Commission. The hope being is that if somebody's applying for a new license, the police department's wrapping their review up about the same time we're doing the Planning Commission site plan review, and both things drop on your docket at the same time, or very close to each other. Again, rather than going all the way through one and then starting the other. So I don't want to go into I won't cover the details here, but that's what this is trying to accomplish. It's basically just taking some of those provisions out and saying that the City Commission is taking those actions. It's not really changing any of the provisions in the ordinance, it's just how they're being processed.
The order.
And this is first reading, so if there's any questions on it.
What questions do you have, Commissioner Perush?
I'll move approval of this on first reading.
A motion by Commissioner Perush, second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion. Commissioner Perush.
It just makes so much sense from an administrative point of view, I would think. I mean, you're not really removing any one body's ability to weigh in and approve or not approve. That's not changing at all. It's just kind of streamlining the process so that these businesses are not involved in this lengthy procedural, as you say, stop, waiting for the other body to act. It just streamlines the process for everyone, and I just think it makes a whole lot of sense. So I think we should move forward with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Just want to say, I mean, this is a business-friendly decision, and we're concerned about, retaining and attracting businesses, and especially food and beverage establishments, because we are a dining destination. So this makes great sense, and obviously I approved it when it came before the Planning Commission.
All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. All right, Mr. Twing, I think you have the approval of license agreement Detroit Eatery walk-up service window as well?
Yeah, very, very simply, this is a request for a license agreement for the Detroit Eatery walk-up service window. The facility is located on the north side of West 5th Street. They had an approval for a restaurant with a roll-up garage door type operation, if you recall what used to be there prior to COVID. During COVID, they put in I'll call it a temporary enclosure where they provided service across the counter or over the counter. They've wanted to continue that with a walk-up service type window. Since they're using the public sidewalk, the public right-of-way for their staging of customers, but we've always treated that as an outdoor service and required a license agreement from the City Commission just to ensure that they keep the sidewalk clean, that we have the ability to make sure they're keeping it a clearance walkway and have some control over that. So it's a very simple, very similar to the Sidewalk Cafe license agreement, but only for those couple of issues to keep a path open and to keep it clean.
Questions for Mr. Twing? Seems pretty simple. Commissioner Perush?
I'll move approval of the resolution approving this.
Motion by Commissioner Perush. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion? Just say I've used the window on several occasions. It works pretty well. And, so I have no problem supporting this. I think it's good. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. That brings us to the 3 items from the consent agenda that we move to the bottom. I'll start with the first, which is the approval of appointments committee recommendations. I believe that was Commissioner Macy.
It actually wasn't, but I was the chair and I can do the,
Okay.
yeah. So we met and we had quite a long list of appointments that we had to do. And following our appointments and reappointments, we received information from the Historic District Study Committee about some ongoing research that was going on. So that's like a research body. And so given that, we'd like to reconvene and reconsider our Historic District Study Committee appointments and reappointments that are listed here. But the next time we meet, which will be fairly soon, we're planning to meet before the January meeting. I can't remember what date in January. So with that, I would move approval of all the appointments. Can I do the appointments and the normal reappointments together?
Sure.
Okay, the appointments and the normal reappointments, except for the 3 implicated in the Historic District Study Committee.
No, there's just 2.
There's a reappointment.
There's a reappointment. There's 2.
How about any? Just use the word
Any. I'll say any. I see
Oh, that's
2
right, 'cause
appointments
one's a
and 1
reappointment.
reappointment, but I won't quibble.
A motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion? Now I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes.
I'd also like to make a motion to reappoint Dan Godek as to Traffic Committee, given the special expertise and experience required for that body. We've seen tonight there's quite a lot involved in what happens on the Traffic Committee. Mr. Godek has been a good leader in that area, and when considering the applications, it felt appropriate for him to continue in that role.
Do you have a motion?
That was a motion.
Second?
A long one.
Second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion? He definitely has paved the road in the
Oh,
Traffic
no.
Committee. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. I think we're good on this one then, right? Yeah. Got through the appointments, reappointments, we're together. Okay, good. Then that brings us to item G, previously on the consent agenda, which is the city manager department request to fill vacancy.
And I'll field that, Mayor.
Okay.
For the record, I have I understand completely the grants coordinator, management analyst position. This is a revenue center in our organization, and it's paid off handsomely over the years. And I may continue speaking with Ms. Lyons-Bricker at some point. I wish her all the best. She's got a great new job, and those will be tough shoes to fill. But so I certainly am in favor of that appointment. But I'm going to ask the city manager about the economic development position. What do you envision? What's this person going to do?
So, in Todd Fenton's current role of as deputy city manager, he's really carried over his previous responsibilities as the economic development manager. So we get a lot of calls from prospective investors, decision makers that are looking at relocating, whether it be headquarters. We don't do so much in retail per se, but because of the economic activity, and particularly with office space, there's been quite an uptick in that regard. So as I'm trying to shift Todd away in more of the operational issues that encompass everything in the organization, it's to help backfill. Now, he wouldn't step away entirely from the economic development. Part of the responsibilities, and even if we can revisit the grant coordinator position, part of the functions of this new position will focus on sustainability, but exterior to this organization. So there are many businesses that are doing sustainability practices on their own. And I'll give you, for instance, I know that Meyer, for instance, the grocer is putting in electric charging stations. We have another building that's just a remodel, didn't come before the Planning Commission or even this body, that's deciding on their own to rebuild a building through LEED certification. The thought is by providing the resources, connections that we can encourage businesses to make those sort of investments that can help bring about the sustainability and climate action plan. So that's the thought process. Now, with that being said, if I can shift the focus over to the position that's really morphed over time, and that the grants coordinator and the sustainability manager, things have been added on over time between the foundation that she's been an instrumental part of, and now with the SCAP, and now we have these other new plans that are coming on board, and that it's from a staff perspective that we're talking about all the time, of really adequately providing the staff liaison support with these groups. For instance, the senior services, we will have the human rights organization that'll be coming on board. And I struggle with that position, that if we can keep up with those demands. I know on grants that the dollars are now becoming available. For instance, the Spark grant that you approved, that's funded by the American Rescue Plan Act. And there are many other programs that are just coming online, and many of you have forwarded, hey, have you heard about this grant? Have you heard about this one? And we're getting quite an uptick in that regard. I have a little bit of worry on that position. If we're going to keep within our means, then we'll try to make it work. But at the same time, I can appreciate that when the question comes about how are we implementing the overall plan within the organization, there is a way that we could devise this. I can wait until the budget process, or we can talk about it right now, where we split out the grant writing to be combined with the community foundation, and then look at the SCAP along with the I'm going to call them special projects, the aging in place and others. And if there's an appetite to do that, from a budget perspective, I can make that work. It's next year is the challenge, to make sure that we can wedge that in there. But when I have a vacancy, that's the time to kind of raise that issue as, is the current position, and in no way is this a criticism, this is much beyond the control of the incumbent who's leaving us, who did a phenomenal job, but it's just, as we have developed these plans and with the standards that we are going to implement them, and we want these boards, commissions, task force to be committed to be successful, providing the bandwidth or the staff support to get that done. So I throw that out. I've had conversations with a couple of you prior to the meeting, really got me thinking about that and talking to the staff about that. I can recruit it as is, and we'll probably through the budget process look at dividing that out, but it gives me a different mindset of going in and recruiting. So it's more information than what you asked for, but I hope that gives you an understanding of, I really want to properly equip the office going into 2023, that we can take on these projects head on and meet the goals and standards that all of you expect.
Okay, you just threw a whole bunch of vegetables into the stew there.
Yeah.
And none of which really, very little part of which describe an economic development role. I mean, there's just a lot going on there.
Yeah, and I was speaking outside of the economic development. So there is that uptick, that there is the interest. Here's the other element that comes along with that. As we have the community benefits of having someone who's on the front end that it's explaining that to developers, and that would be an integral part of someone providing that staff support to Todd to further bring about economic development opportunities that can meet that standard as well. But it's recruitment, retention, expansion. Those are key elements of economic development that'll be part of that. And that staff specialist would be directly supervised by Todd that can carry out those functions.
So here's kind of my problem. When you look at the strategic plan that we as a commission approved here about a year ago, the economic development portion of it is quite lean. And doesn't really talk about business attraction and retention and the things that you've described here. It's really focused on really customer service at the desk, at the front desk. So I sort of feel like this is, I mean, outside our scope here a little bit. And so we've got all of, and to your point, we've got all of these sort of projects we've spent like the last few years planning, and that's a good thing. I mean, we spent all the time on the Civic Center development, and now that's done, and we've had a chance to kind of step back and take a breath and plan for the future. But I'm not sure that we know yet where the best use of our human resources is, for one. For two, I'm very concerned about adding staff. I mean, that is a continuing expense in the budget. And we have seen, we're still maintaining a healthy fund balance, but we have seen that fund balance decline over time. There are other departments who want to add staff. Mr. Leal would like an additional attorney on his staff. I'm certain, any department head that was in this room would have a case for additional staff. So I don't think I'm ready right now to approve that position. But I'm shut my mouth off here.
Yeah. If I can add one more detail about the economic development. The important part is that, so I have a professional certification in economic development as well, and maintain that certification. What's very different here is that we're not going out and seeking that. These are people that are coming to us. So I'm looking at a time management, how can I best use Todd's time? Because as a deputy city manager, I want to have him get into the operational issues of the one that Director Twing brought up, is that an issue that we struggle with is that business or investors that come in that do a site plan to pull a building permit, we want to narrow down the amount of time that it takes. And so we're really focusing on that customer service component. So that's part of it. So this isn't a person that's going out saying, come to Royal Oak. No, we're getting inquiries all of the time. And it's a matter of how can we best channel that. And the thought was that to bring about the sustainability practices along the community benefits, and we have these examples that I gave you before of companies that are doing these practices voluntarily, but is this something that we can leverage that to even have a greater number of companies consider building a green building, putting in that infrastructure of cases where we don't require it by ordinance. So that's the point of that. So I don't want to diminish the value of it, and I will certainly work within the original recommendation, but I'm just kind of pointing that out. These are some of the internal struggles that we're discussing. So.
And I would assert that, and in fact, if you look at our economic development priorities, they really do revolve around sort of the need for customer-friendly actions and people and programs and systems in our community development department. So I'm inclined to say that maybe we should be focusing on making our community development department better as opposed to adding this economic development staffer. But again, I'm talking a lot, and there are 4 other people up here who might have opinions, and it looks like Commissioner Macy might be one of them.
I gotta not forget what I was gonna say, so before I gotta respond to that first. So I find it pretty persuasive what you're saying about our strategic goals and having to be strategic about how we are staffing our overall city. I did some back of the napkin math, and it seems like the city manager's office has grown 50% in terms of how much we're spending on it in the last 5 years, which is significant. And if we're being smart about how we're spending our dollars, spending them thinking about doing this right now when there's maybe some changes into how we're going to consider these roles that will be coming around in the next year as we look at the budget, and we are having lots of people ask for more staff. I think every year we have every department ask for more staff. It makes me want to put this on hold for the moment. So there's one more in your corner, I guess. But what I really wanted to say was about the grant coordinator, and I think you already covered this, but I just wanted to say we were really left out with Ms. Lyons-Bricker in terms of all that she was able to do for us, and the fact that sustainability became such a big part of her role in the creation of the SCAP plan and really pushing it forward. I just wanted to make sure that when we're looking for this position, that part of it is rolled into the job description. I don't want to drop that. And it sounds like you're thinking we may need to figure that out in the future. But as we're doing that hiring now, as important as the grants are, the sustainability is really critical too. And I just want to ask if we're going to be considering that as we.
And we are. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's all.
So my understanding is, from a sustainability point of view, that's what, when we hired Ms. Lyons-Bricker, it was mostly about, at the beginning, grants and everything, and she really just merged and took on this extra effort, became sort of the, front person when it came to sustainability, which is one of our top priorities. So the question is that the headline? Or is it, do you have a mix of, how do you set these positions up where sustainability is also tied with economic development? And so, how do you manage that? I don't know how you do it. We can't have a position for every task that we have, but I think that at least highlighting it and making sure that we're being, that sustainability part of the role. And I don't know if you can find that person that's great at writing grants and is also great at leading a sustainability effort. We got lucky because we had somebody that was passionate about it.
Correct.
So, that might be something we have to come back and take a look at because also sustainability is, all the initiatives we have are going to be relying on grants as well and federal funding and all of this other stuff. So I don't think I have an issue immediately trying to find somebody to at least get the money in, right, for these grants, but we have to start thinking about it in terms of sustainability and not forgetting that headline. The economic development specialist position too, in a way, arguably, if we're leaving projects on the table because we can't get to them, is a argument there that this position does perhaps pay for some of itself, if not all of it. I don't know. But we do in the increasingly challenged business market, especially in real estate, office, and all of that. I imagine, too, this position also helps existing businesses.
Correct.
Like if there's they're coming to us saying, hey, I need to take advantage of a grant, there's this new COVID thing, or this is, whatever, this person would be working to ensure that, we're not snuffing out growth for our existing business owners as well. So, and this was in the budget already? Was this one already?
That is correct. That was approved as part of this budget. Yeah, and if I can push back a little bit gently. So when you talk about the increase of the staffing level, I can tell you I came from a community that had half the population. Granted, it was a major university, but I had a similar size staff as I do here. So to say that, well, there's been this large growth in the city manager's office, to maintain the status quo but expect different outcomes is not realistic. And so to carry out these goals, these are the recommendations. I take this, I don't like to create more of overhead that does become burdensome that later on that we would end up having to reduce. I don't want to put myself in that position.
I'll just say, and I'm empathetic to that, we do have, if you think about it, we've done some pretty darn amazing things. Just off, tonight, we've talked about our SCAP plan, which is going to take management and implementation to get that done, coordination. We have the Human Rights Commission, which is going to take some time and effort to get rolling and set up and staff and all of that. We have the Aging in Place initiative that we just approved tonight. And all of that really, if I understand, is primarily coming out of the city manager's office as a catch-all.
That's correct.
You wouldn't put that in DPS or, a fire department. So, if we have these, ambitious goals, even though the department is growing, it's really the catch-all to a lot of the things that we're pushing at this table as well. Commissioner Prush?
I came into the meeting tonight thinking that I wasn't really excited about filling the vacant economic development specialist position based upon how that position had operated in the past, which was pretty much attracting businesses, attracting people to develop the parking lots and so on and so forth, because we've stopped doing that, essentially. But based upon your description of what he or she's portfolio would be on a going forward basis, it's much broader. And you're absolutely correct that based upon the work that we've done over the past year or so on all of these projects, it's created an awful lot of additional work, bottom line. And so if, in fact, the intent is to fill it with someone who has a much broader portfolio than just economic development, based upon the way you've described structuring it, then I think it's appropriate to do.
Okay.
If we were to delay it at all tonight, I would say fold it into the budget process and reconsider it then, instead of dropping it completely. But on the other hand, I think it's something that's necessary based on what we've done. We've created an awful lot of additional work, and if it's going to get done, we're going to need people to do it.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yeah, I will support what the mayor said about the size of the city manager's staff. I mean, we as a commission have driven a lot of big policy ideas through here in the past couple of years, and have made, demands at a high level for, policy analysts and in the city attorney's office also. So, I mean, I don't dispute the need for a staff of that size, but I'm still going to hold back on the economic development position. Probably we need it, but we need other things too, and I think we're just at a point where before we add somebody in a full-time and an FTE there, I'd rather take a look at the big picture and make sure that's the right place for that to hire somebody.
Well, I think that's a whole nother conversation, because we did approve in the budget the position, and we did kind of go through that. So it's really a matter of, do we fill the vacancy now or later, or do we go back and just, I think Commissioner Prush said, you just put it off and redo your man mapping for the next few years?
Well, while I approved the budget, I never intended to fill that position.
Touche. I mean, definitely that is a realistic expectation. So, I mean, I'm supportive of it, just because if we're getting a lot of inbound calls, we need to manage and field it. It's a touch point. It's a way to stimulate our, economy. It's a way to manage and help our struggling businesses that still have issues from time to time. It's not you say the economy's doing well, but for the top 3 companies in the world, it's doing well. For everybody else, we're still clawing back,
Right. Shareholders.
I'd be I can't make motions, but I would be supportive of filling these 2 vacancies. Commissioner Prush?
I'll make that motion that we fill both vacancies.
Motion by Commissioner Prush. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Hunt. Discussion? Commissioner Macy?
I feel the same way I felt before. So, just explaining my vote.
Okay. All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
The irony of having the ring right after. So it's 2 noes and 3 ayes? Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
So that brings us to H, confirmation of city manager's appointments to the Downtown Development Authority.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's you. That one
Yeah,
was you.
so I reached out to the city manager about this. So we have some board members who we're losing, and then we're appointing to fill their positions. And in our ordinance, it states that we have to have a resident in the DDA, a resident of the downtown in the DDA. And since we're losing that one and not reappointing it, I wanted to check on that. And Mr. Brake had an answer, which I think he'll give now.
Okay. So it's not only the ordinance, it's by state law that you have a resident, and I'm glad you clarified that for anyone that's listening to this. It may be kind of confusing. So it's not a resident of Royal Oak, but within the boundaries of the DDA. And it was brought to my attention after the memo was written up that there is a board member that's intending to resign because life happens, and it's not the end of that person's term. So I saw this as an opportunity to not as the resident component, but to bring in an additional retailer. So this is where I'm at, and hopefully this won't be too confusing, the one I'm about to explain. In the ordinance, we can have either 8 DDA members plus me, or 10 DDA members plus the city manager. My intent for this evening, it does create a problem. I place these individuals in order. So the third individual I would hold off for the moment. But there is, how I go about, let me give you a little bit more background. When I look to recommend these positions, I conduct interviews, and I do a real quick sort of, and also seek advice, from those in the office of, reputation and what they would add and whatnot. I have found someone who responded who would be an excellent candidate for the resident spot, and I'm hoping next week I will come back with additional recommendations. But at the bare minimum, I'm recommending that you reappoint Mike Safaya. There is an additional vacant position that we've had for some time, recommending that Jay Dunstan fill that position. And for the moment, Arbor LeClave, not that you're not appointing him, but let me bring that back. And I've spoken to Mike Safaya to get his opinion about expanding the board to, in essence, it would be 11 member, so we'd need 6 people for a quorum, but he's very much in favor of that. And I would like to have a greater representation of retailers, as well as we've got bars and restaurants, we have that covered. But I think for fairness for the rest of the downtown, I'd really like to add another retailer, and I'll sort out that issue of the resident, and I'll have a third one to make that an even number to go to 10, if you follow me. So, because currently we have 7 members on the board, 1 vacancy, and so that's where Mike Safaya is just returning. Jay Dunstan fills that spot. That brings us to 8. And then the resident who is currently on the board, he will be at next week's meeting. So I don't need someone immediately, but his hope is that he can leave in January, and if all works out, I may be bringing a second slate of candidates to fill that, to bring that board up to 10. And these are interviews that I've already done. So,
Commissioner Perush?
So the resident member who is leaving is Matt Riley?
Correct.
Doesn't Jay Dunstan live in the district?
I asked that question, and he is like literally like throwing a paper from, he's like, the property that he lives, because I had that same inquiry, he is contiguous, but he is not in the DDA boundaries.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Because I know that
it's that little sliver that comes down Main Street,
which we're not allowed to do anymore. But yeah,
I know, but it's only the road right of way.
Oh, for heaven's sake! So it's none of the residential on either side of it.
Correct. I did not know that either, because I thought.
Because you're right. He can touch the road from his front door.
Yeah. In fact, his place is like I said, it is contiguous to the boundaries. But no, he does not technically meet that, because I thought the same thing when that discussion came up internally. I thought, oh, problem solved.
Yeah.
And Tim pointed that out and says no, where he lives does not qualify.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that was my question.
Yeah.
Everybody understand? Commissioner Macy.
So I move approval of the reappointment of Mike Safaya and the appointment of Jay Dunstan.
Motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a
And
second?
Arbor?
Second by
that's what
Commissioner
Well, that's
Douglas.
what we're holding on. Okay.
Discussion? You say 2 good people, so I fully support it. Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Oh, all right. I think we've hit the end of our meeting.
I have one more thing.
Sure,
If I
Commissioner.
may. In our discussion about the appointments committee, we did not say that. The committee will meet again on January 4th, which is before the commission meeting at which our terms will be handed over. At that meeting, we will be dealing with the Historic District Study Committee and the Human Rights Commission appointments. We wanted to make that a separate meeting because we have a large slate of people interested in it. It's at 6 p.m. Usually we meet like during the day, but we're going to do this at 6 p.m. so that prospective committee members can come and present to us. So everybody take note.
Sarah.
Perfect. All right.
And I move we adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. Sorry. Oh. All those in favor, any discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
Oh, you made it, Mayor. You made it.
I made it, barely. I'm losing it now.
Yeah.
About an hour ago I started.